You are about to experience the Drunken Peasants podcast, the greatest podcast in human history. Please recognize that this podcast is designed to be amusing and entertaining, and thus we engage in satirical comments, exaggerations, and even dirty jokes. If you are offended by such things, please go away and die. If you enjoy this podcast, we ask that you help to support its existence by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/DP. Contributors get regular access to monthly private shows, special commentaries, Google Hangouts with the peasants, and more. If you don't want to do that, you can also support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/drunkenpeasants to get a free audiobook and access to over 150,000 audiobook titles, including great selections on science and skepticism. And if you shop on Amazon.com, we strongly urge you to use one of the Amazon affiliate links in the description section of our videos. You can help support the show simply by using our link to buy things you were going to buy anyway. Now that we've got all that shit out of the way, sit back and enjoy the show.
Coming to you live from the frigid armpit of America, this is the Drunken Peasants Podcast with Ben and TJ, bringing you opinions of the news from an altered perspective.
Suck it!
There are starving children in the world, right?
Show me a child. Show me some empirical evidence it's happened. Yes, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Lick my butthole, he laughed.
What the fuck is going on?
Nothing, TJ. You're garbage. You're garbage, TJ.
Now, here are your hosts, Ben and TJ. Welcome to the Drunken Peasants Podcast, where we DP the fuck out of the internet.
The universe.
This is show 156.
A special episode. We've hit the 156-mile marker on the road to success.
Yeah, boy!
I think our 200th episode, TJ should die. That'll be the twist. TJ's dead. The end.
Sweet.
Or is it?
But then I can come back as Zombie TJ.
Yeah, Zombie TJ. You'll actually have more empathy when you come back as Zombie TJ.
Yeah, I'll be actually, like, nicer. When Shirt Guy comes on the show, I'll be like, Zombie TJ likes Shirt
Love
Guy.
you, third guy. Dave Reanimator. Okay.
It's Dave Creator.
Dave Reanimator. He's Dave Reanimator.
Sorry,
creates
Dave.
Daves.
Scotty's changing your name.
Your name has changed, bitch.
Herbert West, Reanimator.
Sorry about that, Dave.
Dave.
I'm not sorry, Dave.
Dave Creator made our intro. Let's give a big round of applause to Dave
Yeah,
Creator!
Oh my god! TJ slapped with him.
Hell yeah.
TJ had sex with him for the intro.
He did.
That was the exchange. He's like, I want money. TJ's like, how about this ass? And he's like, all right.
I guess. He was drunk.
Nah, TJ, don't lie. He was sober as a guy that's fucking just been in AA for 3 years, TJ. Not one relapse, not one drink, would never even take a drink. He was as sober as possible.
If you're a girl in our audience, 5 sets of ears just perked up right now. If you're a girl in our audience and you have nice cleavage and you're over 18 years old, would you do us a favor? And,
Do us a favor.
wearing either like a bikini top or a bra or something like that. Can you shut up? You gotta write I love DP on your tits. Okay? The reason for this is simple.
Tell him why, TJ.
Our nemesis. He who must not be named. Because he's too logical. He's too smart for us. He's too fucking
He's
smart.
a real genius.
AIU.
No.
No, that's not him.
Devon.
Devon Dudley.
So
He's bragged about how the girls on his show have sent him
so many
cleavage
girls
pics
love me.
that say, I love AIU on
Love me.
on their chest. We just want to get more. We can't beat him intellectually because he's just too
Too
damn
smart.
fucking smart for
A
us.
real fucking genius.
If only
An
I had a
inconquerable-
fucking shred of his intellect.
TJ, he's inconquerable with his intellect. It's the Mount Everest of intellects. Come on.
Not to mention the highbrow European-style sense of humor.
Oh,
Lost
yes.
on North
That's
American
resonating
audiences.
with all the hip kids,
People in North America are like, what's going on? I don't even understand. Is he speaking English? Like, what's happening? Because as we know, people in North America only speak English. That's the only language they speak.
I can only appeal to these cheeseburger-eating, acne-faced American teenagers, while he gets all the highbrow, snooty intellectuals. But maybe, just maybe, I can get more girls to write "I love DP" on their tits.
Hey, TJ, I just want to say something to you.
You can also write "I hate AIU" if you don't want to say you love us.
Hey, TJ.
Yeah.
Blacked.
Black dog.
Done.
It's up, Doc.
Done.
Hey.
All right, so before we bring our guest Howard Bloom on the show,
Howard Blue.
we're going to go ahead and shill a little bit.
Chill.
Actually, this is exciting, though. This is
Hey, guys, we need a shilling intro. You guys need
time to make some money. Time to make some money. Time to make some money on the Drunken Peasant Podcast. Oh.
We have TJ's garbage. Ban TJ hoodie.
Yeah, yeah.
Ben.
Someone sent me a picture of them wearing a Band TJ hoodie. It's pretty awesome.
Neat.
And if you send in pictures, if you've gotten any shirts, feel free to send them in. And eventually here, once all the shirts have been sold, we'll do a slideshow where everyone's picture gets shown.
Yeah, do we have a new item? We have a couple. We have a returning item and a new item.
Yeah, the returning item is awesome.
The returning item is the Ben Cena shirt, which last time didn't sell shit, but I guess now that Cena's such a meme, it's selling.
Yep.
So, yeah, get your Ben Cena
And this-
shirt.
Ben loves Cena.
this-
You guys thought it sucked months ago, but now it's cool.
This actually mimics a shirt style that Cena had previously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it used to say "Rise Above Hate," but I made it say "Rise Above Taint."
Neat.
Wow.
So
yeah,
If you
wear
like
this
taint-
shirt, and you're fucking making fun of Cena, and you're in on the
I'll
Cena
tell you what.
meme.
I'll tell you what. If you buy this shirt and you send in a fucking picture of you wearing it, I will make your picture the thumbnail of an episode.
Woo!
Oh, wow.
So
But, well, what if a bunch of people do it, though?
Then they can all be a part of the
they can all be
They
thumbnails.
can.
Wow. That's hardcore. It's hardcore.
Also, we have the Drunken Peasants hoodie.
Yeah, the new and well, I guess it's not. I guess it's a returning item as well. But, winter's
is.
coming up and shit. Drunken Peasants hoodie.
Fall, TJ.
It is
fall.
the high. Hold on. What the fuck? It is. It is the highest quality hoodie
Stop jerking your mic off.
that they possibly have. I didn't even touch
You're
it.
supposed to be shilling properly, you fucking idiot. Can't be trusted to shill anymore. You're
Well, how am I
worthless.
supposed to work under these fucking conditions?
I don't know,
Microphone doesn't work.
If you
It
mean
works just fine.
when you say under these conditions, if you mean being TJ, then
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
That was pretty good.
TJ needs to form a
Touche,
union.
Ben.
He's gonna
Too fucking shit.
He's gonna form a union, Ben.
Yeah, the TJ union.
Collective bargaining. I need 99% of the revenue from the show.
All right,
Fair.
time to bring the guest on. Oh no, one more thing.
What? Oh, yeah,
FanDuel.
cool. Yeah, let's do that.
So, because so many of our viewers / listeners have participated in our FanDuel League, they have now added an extra 50 slots to our listener league, which means more money to be won.
Yeah, now the first prize is 150. It used to be 75.
Right.
Second prize, 75. Third prize, 50. Fourth prize, 40.
So it looks like I'm gonna be
So on and
winning
so forth.
again.
Oh, you're going to win more money?
I'm gonna win more money.
Scotty, what did you place on our last FanDuel
Sixth.
listener league? You got sixth. And
So-
Scotty, how
Twice.
How much did you? Oh, you got sixth.
So
twice.
right now, almost a third of the slots are already full. It doesn't matter if we don't fill all the slots, though. This prize money's guaranteed, no matter what.
Yeah, so get in on that shit, y'all.
But it probably will fill up. So
I look
hurry
forward
the
to
fuck
taking
up.
more of your guys' money. So just prepare.
Yeah, shit. I need to get slots on that actually,
Yeah.
because I don't have my personal.
You
account
have no
participating.
chance, but I'll be happy to take your money.
My name, by the way, on the site is Newsy and the Fly with Lyman's. So
yeah.
if you guys want to go compete against me and shit,
I think what is Ben's? I love cocaine.
Mine's just like Drunken Peasants.
No, I think it was I love
Scotty,
cocaine.
what is yours?
I wish.
Scotty DP.
Yep.
Scotty DP. So you get DP.
So come and play
Often.
with us.
Come and play.
Play with us.
Come play with us.
All right, here comes Howard Bloom. We're bringing him on the line. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. Are you there, Howard?
Yes. Now let's get the picture a little bit better.
Yep, and I'm gonna bring.
Okay, cool.
All right.
It
Howard.
looks good. I'm gonna do a few quick things. I need to turn up your audio, and I'm gonna share screens with you here. So how's it going, Howard?
It's very interesting. Life continues to be very interesting.
What's going on?
Well, it's very complicated. In my private life, I've fallen madly in love with somebody, and falling madly in love takes you into an entire forest of the mind that you never knew was there on a normal basis. And you're groping and wandering. It's got its moments of ecstasy. It's got its moments of incredible pain. Oh, what is this thing trying to tell me? Oh, yes, it's telling me that I'm due for something. So at any rate, and it's just bizarre. It's painful and it's bizarre.
That mirrors what's going on in your life, doesn't it, TJ?
Yeah, kind of. A little bit.
It actually does. TJ's madly in love with someone new as well, so you guys can kind of bond over that.
Commiserate.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the right word.
Right. Commiserate.
Right. And meantime, we got to plow ahead with things. I've got a new podcast that just went up on iTunes yesterday. It's a new podcast series. It's called Howard Bloom Saves the Universe. And the first episode is about why we absolutely love, adore, and are addicted to the end of the world scenarios.
Why is that then?
Well, that's a good question because when we're actually a part of a generation that's eventually going to flicker out and die and be just as anonymous as the Irish dock workers of 1850 who worked in London are to us today. We don't even know about their existence. And if we're part of cataclysm, if we're a part of a universe that's on the verge, or a world that's on the verge of self-destruction, hey, that gives us a monumental importance. And these apocalyptic myths don't just arrive with an idea that the world is going to end. They arrive with the idea that only us, a tiny little group of people, a tiny little cognoscenti, are intelligent enough to understand what to do to save the world. So the world's going to end for everybody else, but it's not going to end for us because we know the answer. And that applies to groups from the Christians who are waiting around for Jesus to reappear in 30 AD, to the environmentalists who believe that the world is going to end in this massive cataclysm of climate change, and only they know how to save us. Mm-hmm. So it puts us in a position of unique importance, and it gives us a sense of control over our lives. And it also gives us a sense that there's this thing called altruistic punishment. When you single out others and demonize them so that you can punish them, it turns out it produces a dopamine surge in the striatum and certain other parts of the brain. It's like a high. It's like cocaine. It's like amphetamines.
So good to persecute these people, yes.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
Oh, God,
right.
Yeah.
When you know exactly who the enemy is that's bringing on the world's destruction, and only you are capable of guiding people toward a higher position.
Okay.
Don't you think that...
By the way, right now I'm getting told that Howard's volume is really low, and I have turned him up.
Let me go look at it. Let me go look at it in my controls. Hang on, bear with me.
Okay, thank you.
It could be, no, that's the wrong volume. Bear with me. I'm a klutz on these things.
No, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right.
And what is it? It's all right. Let me see. It gives me a way to turn up the sound. Properties. That should do it. Properties sounds about right. No, I don't see anything. Wait. Listen, levels, magic. Okay, now we're going to turn it way up. And barring that, well, come on, stop turning yourself down. Okay. Apply. Okay. No, it went back to where it was. Hang on, let's try it one more time, and then I'll try turning off the air conditioner, because that may be swamping everything. So
I would say some people in the chat.
Levels. You're watching my.
Whoa, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
That was like a
okay,
747.
some people in the chat are saying.
Yeah,
I would
I think we're just gonna go.
let's
I think we're just gonna roll with it.
Now,
Okay.
No, do you think there's like an element of egotism though to that end of the world stuff? Not just in like the idea of like ourselves as saviors, but maybe like the idea that, you know, we're the last generation, we're the pinnacle of human achievement, nothing came after us, that sort of thing. Like
Absolutely. That, I mean, you know, humans are addicted to something that we never talk about: attention. Attention is the oxygen of the human soul. That's a Bloomism. Henry Kissinger said that attention is the ultimate aphrodisiac. He was right. And if we're just going to disappear on the stage of history without ever having made it into the spotlight at all, that's a rather disappointing thing for those of us, all of us, who hunger, crave, demand, desire attention. But if we're right in center stage, right in the middle of things, and we have the pivotal position that's either going to save the world or not going to save the world, that puts us right in the middle of the spotlight. All of a sudden, we imagine ourselves at the very center of attention. If there's a God involved in destroying this earth, an angry God clutching at it with an iron fist.
that is the most popular idea, by the way.
Yes, well, we have God's attention. I mean, we not only have God's attention, we're in the center of attention because we're the only ones who can do his work. So yes, egotism it's all about egotism.
Yeah, that attention thing, I feel sorry for the people unlike me who are going to be forgotten to history, whereas my name will ring throughout the ages.
The TJ Museum, you know, your video's on display 24/7.
Yes.
Well, this is serious stuff. TJ's got, what, 500,000 subscribers to your YouTube site now?
725,000.
726,000.
725, amazing. So is just a chance that you will make it into history, that when your bones are surrounded by what little remains of the dust that was you, that in fact TJ Kincaid, the amazing atheist, will go marching on. There's a chance.
Do you think that's why people do these like mass shooting type things more than anything else?
Yes,
Just,
it is a primary. It's an absolutely primary motivation, because it brings them attention, and even if they're doing it as a form of suicide, I don't know if you've ever contemplated suicide. I've tried it once or twice. It's a very lonely proposition, and you'd much rather go out with company and, of course, go out in a blaze of glory. Then that's ideal. So shooting a whole bunch of people, yeah, that's definitely going to put you in the headlines.
Yeah, you know, you get on the cover of the magazines and have the news cycle be just about you and what you did for, you know, probably at least a couple weeks, depending on how big your you know, victim pool is.
Right. Well, so attention is the oxygen in the human soul, and there's another magic quality to attention. Attention is an information processing coupling. If you can get a sufficient attention, what you have been doing pours into the group mind, becomes something significant in the group mind. I mean, Einstein is a permanent presence in our lives, and he died in something like 1957. Galileo and Newton are constant presences in our lives, and they died 300 years ago. So these guys managed to form a kind of information coupling that allows them to pour their knowledge across the centuries, pour it to generations that come long after their time. Well, guess what? Human society benefits from that. It benefits from having people who compete with all their might to come up with something that's worthy of society's attention, and then compete to get that attention, and compete to get the ultimate coupling, which is enough attention that the attention goes on, as Achilles used to like to say, because he wanted this kind of attention, for thousands of years down the line.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like the dark flip side to the desire for attention too, with the mass shootings and the end of the world stuff.
Oh, it's more than that. How did Alexander the Great get to be great? Because of the number of people he killed. How did Napoleon fix himself permanently in our mind? Because of the number of people he killed. How has Adolf Hitler managed to become a permanent presence in the collective brain? Because of the number of people he killed. We humans don't recognize it.
People on the internet still get compared to Hitler to this day.
Yes, I noticed that, and some people deliberately take on names, their screen names that are very similar to Adolf Hitler, for shock value to get attention. But what makes humans unique? What makes us different from bonobos? What makes us different from chimpanzees? Bonobos and chimpanzees are not the kind of multi-generational creatures that we are. They don't carry around with them a whole toolkit that's left to them by ancestors. Yes, at most they use a stone as a hammer and a flat rock as an anvil, and they manage to break open nuts. That's as far as it goes. We we we're gifted with the grandfather effect. We admire what the elders of old who achieved that kind of mythic, legendary status. We not only admire what they have to say, we gain attention for ourselves by citing over and over again what they have to say. When I put Albert Einstein, Galileo, and Newton into play in the conversation, I'm lifting my own potential stature a little bit. Well, what does that do for the legacies of these guys? It keeps those legacies alive. So we've got a legacy of culture that goes back somewhere between 40,000 and 2.5 million years, a legacy of the tools we make, but more important, a legacy of language. Words like and the and but and sentences and paragraphs, all these were radical inventions in their time. And those inventions have been handed down generation after generation after generation because we have this fixation on aggrandizing ourselves by citing our ancestors.
You're getting a little too highbrow for our lowbrow audience, so I'm going to change gears to something more salacious. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
God.
Future president.
I watched your video, first of all, about not your most recent video about Donald Trump, but the one you did before that about what a bully he is.
Right.
I was watching a documentary. I don't remember. I think it was called something like "You've Been Trumped" or something.
Oh,
like that.
the one about the Scottish golf course.
Yeah, and there's a scene where he's looking at someone's house and he's like, "We got to get that house out of here. That house has got to be gone."
Gone.
And his handler was like, well, "The owner's probably not gonna be happy about that." He's like, "I don't care. I don't care." It's like, we're supposed to believe this guy is going to have like the best interest of the American people at heart when he's obviously just does everything for his own gratification and nothing beyond that whatsoever. There's not a civic-minded bone in Donald Trump's body, in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I used to get really upset about his TV show, The Apprentice, because when you're running a business, your job is to grow other people. Your job is to find the things that other people want to do most and are most capable of doing, and then help them achieve what they want to achieve through the work that you are giving them. It's like gardening. But Donald Trump doesn't see it that way. He gets across the impression that running a business is all about saying you're fired. I'm sorry. When you fire a person, you are destroying your business. You're not building your business. It's the very opposite of capitalism, entrepreneurialism, whatever the hell you want to call it.
What about the type of things that Mitt Romney used to do, where he would buy corporations and liquidate them? Is that?
Well, I've heard some good. I hate to say this because I'm a total registered Democrat, but I've heard some good things about Mitt Romney from inside of his organization. That he had a method for going into a business that was not doing all that well and changing it so that it would do much, much better. Yes, he did do that liquidation stuff, and I was commenting on it back whenever that was, 7 years ago or something like that. And that was fairly hideous and foul and monstrous because he was basically cheating people. He was getting money from them. He was asking more money than these businesses deserved. He was deliberately selling people faulty investments, but in order to line his own pockets and the pockets of a company. He apparently did have a method for turning companies around, and that's something we never really got to examine in that election. But Donald Trump, I mean, look, okay, one characteristic of bullies think that everybody else is bullying them. They think they're the victims. Well, look at Donald Trump leveling lawsuits left and right for people who are, to use his word, mean to him. Now, how many people are mean to Donald Trump compared to the number of people Donald Trump is mean to? The number of people Donald Trump is mean to far outflanks the number of people who are mean to Donald Trump. And if you were in the public arena and there's freedom of speech, that meanness, what he calls meanness, is called criticism. And criticism and debate are what a democracy is all about. So Donald Trump, at best, would be Vladimir Putin if he could. he'd be a total bully taking over totalitarian control of a country. And your example of saying that house has got to go. No, it's gone. Without any feeling for the person inside the house. That's the way Donald Trump thinks that he's creating magnificent deeds and getting things done. And if you'll allow the expression "fuck him,"
what is the?
No, we love him.
What is your feeling about his border wall?
Idea? The border nonsense
that the Mexicans are going to pay for, and then not only that,
they're also going to self-deport.
Our relations with Mexico will improve, and the second he's president, he's going to deport everyone.
Right. And somebody's worked out the arithmetic on us deporting everybody, and it costs about $115 billion to do that. Donald Trump has claimed that it costs something like $200 billion a year to do whatever we do with the immigrants we've already got in the United States. And people have done the arithmetic on that, and it turns out that the immigrants who are already in the United States make us more money than they cost us, because they go to work, they earn wages, they pay taxes. You've heard these arguments before.
Communism.
One of the problems with building walls, and we learned this in the Dark Ages from 500 AD to 1100 AD, when you build walls, you not only lock people out, you lock yourself in. And that's one of the most dangerous things that can happen to us. Right now, we're not doing all that well in the world. We need to absorb as many lessons as we can from those who are doing well. And we need to create sufficiently to outflank them.
That brings up a question in my mind. What do you think is America's learning disorder? Why is it so difficult for us to ever reach a consensus on anything? Is it just because people are we have so many different factions of people who look at things in so many different ways, and there's so many different perceptual realities and shit that we just can't even come to a consensus about what is, let alone what should be?
Well, having a lot of different hypotheses in the group mind is a very good thing. The more you have, the better. But yes, you do have to make decisions from time to time. And the human way of coming up with options is black and white, us versus them. It's binary. It's divide things into everybody who wants to get on the side of Coke, and everybody who wants to get on the side of Pepsi. Everybody who wants to get on the side of the Republicans. Everybody who wants to get on the side of the Democrats. Everybody who wants to get on the side of the South. Everybody who wants to get on the side of the North. And these binary things periodically get us lockjawed. They get us paralyzed, where we can't make decisions. And right now, the right and the left in Congress and the Senate have become so radically polarized that they're having a very hard time getting anything done. But there's another problem here, and that is that the right believes that government is the source of all evils, and if you get rid of government, everything will be hunky-dory. They're wrong. Without government, we wouldn't have DARPA. I mean, they keep going back to the quote from Barack Obama, where he said to a bunch of businessmen, "You did not do this alone." Well, Barack Obama was right. So those who argue against Barack Obama and loathe Barack Obama say Obama was wrong. He was wrong because look at the example of Steve Jobs at Apple. And they natter on and on about Steve Jobs at Apple, failing to realize that Steve Jobs would have been nothing without the internet, which was developed and built by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, part of the government.
I think Al Gore built that. Excuse me, Howard. I think Al Gore was
in his
the one who built
garage,
that.
in his spare time. Come on.
Yep.
Yeah, well, he apparently did encourage it at one point.
Sure,
yes,
sure.
He did. We agree.
And they would have been nowhere without the microchip. And the microchip was developed under military auspices. The whole computer was developed under military auspices. That's the government, for God's sakes. So we need things like roads. We need things like infrastructure. We need things like research and development. And the basic premise of my book, The Genius of the Beast, A Radical Revision of Capitalism, is that the Western system, which has produced amazing miracles, has done it through a balance, a dynamic balance between three elements: government, private industry, or whatever you want to call the free enterprise system, and the protest industry, which has been around since 1848, when Henry David Thoreau wrote his book on civil disobedience and started the anti-war movement. And then there was an anti-imperialism movement. One of the very first anti-imperialist global conventions was in 1899, a long time ago. So when these things are all healthy and working against each other or with each other, the system thrives. Get rid of one of those elements and you destroy the system. And what the right wing, the Tea Party Republicans want to do is destroy government. So when they, there was Bobby Jindal.
Oh my God. He was my governor for a while, you know.
You poor baby. Well, Bobby Jindal's political handler was doing an interview on C-SPAN this morning. And he said, we lowered taxes in Louisiana. And we knew that was going to result in deficits, but we did it to shrink the government. Once there was no money to pay for government, we'd be forced to shrink the government. Well, if you'll use the expression once again, fuck Bobby Jindal. Because without a balance between government, private industry, and the protest industry, none of these things thrive. They all shrivel up and die.
It's like the Triforce. Anyway, but you were talking about Western civilization and its talking about its values and stuff. But I was watching a video of yours because I went back and watched some of your most recent videos today. So I just had some ideas about the sort of things that have been on your mind lately. And probably my favorite video of the ones I watched was one that concerned Islam and rape and why groups like ISIS use rape as, you know, an intimidation tactic, a control tactic, and so on and so forth. Maybe you could give us a little bit of a recap of that video so that people kind of know what I'm talking about.
Well, Muhammad did something very important. The idea of heaven and hell wasn't unique to Muhammad. He came along hundreds of years, well, he came along approximately 800 to 900 years after those ideas had been installed in the Western mind, and he came along 600 years after they were installed in the Christian mind. But he did something unique. He put pussy in paradise. Are we allowed to say these things? I don't hear it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Say literally anything you want.
Right. Well,
literally anything.
He was up against a problem. His big enemies, he'd moved out of his hometown to a town called Medina. His hometown was Mecca. Mecca was big, Medina was small. And the Meccans, and he decided to make a living in Medina by being a highway robber.
Wasn't Mecca the place of worship for all the different gods?
Yes. In the generation before Muhammad, until a generation before Muhammad, there was a tradition of a certain month of the year when everybody got on their camels and went off to a bunch of different villages to honor the different villages' gods. And in the process, they exchanged information, and they made alliances, and they married girls. They looked over the daughters. They looked over the daughters of the town's fathers. And then the Meccans pulled a coup. And this is before Muhammad was born. They said, okay, we're going to take all the gods and put them in one place. And from now on, instead of going and visiting each other, going from village to village, you will all come to Mecca.
So then Muhammad was exiled to Medina for preaching monotheism, correct?
Well, he wasn't exiled. The Meccans decided that they really were not happy about his preachings, that his preachings were causing too much trouble, especially to this business they'd worked up of getting everybody to make a migration to Mecca every year. And here was this guy who was talking about Jerusalem because he wanted to be the Jewish savior. And Muhammad felt that he was about to be murdered. So he put his nephew Ali in his bed and he snuck off in the middle of the night to escape. So he escaped to Medina. And a whole bunch of his followers escaped to Medina. And that meant that his followers were all living as house guests with the folks of Medina. And, you know, house guests get very unwelcome very rapidly. So Muhammad had to figure out a way to make himself welcome on a continuing basis. And he came up with this very simple idea. He knew the routes that Mecca's camel caravans took on their way to Syria with all kinds of riches and goods and money. So he waylaid the camel caravans and killed a couple of people and stole the stuff on the camels' backs. And then he was able to pay off his helpers, they're called Ansars, big time. Well, then the Meccans decided they'd had enough of this bullshit. They'd had enough of this highway robbery. So they got their army together. Their army, of course, consisted of the guys in the group who did war, as one of the experts within Islam says that war was a hobby for the people of the Arabian Peninsula. So they got these hobbyists together, but they knew they could beat the pants off Muhammad. And they went to Medina, and they lost. And Muhammad, just to emphasize not just that he had won, but that he had utter contempt for the people of Mecca, he stuffed the most powerful, generous, wise men of the village. He stuffed their bodies into a well. That was called the Battle of Badr. That was Muhammad's first battle. Well, then Muhammad heard that the Meccans were going to go after him again, so he decided to do a normal pitch battle, and he did it in front of a mountain called Uhud. There's a problem with positioning yourself in front of a mountain called Uhud. Uhud was really two mountains, which meant there was a pass in between them. So Muhammad's troops could be attacked from the rear. So Muhammad, he's not a dummy, far from it. He took 50 archers and he positioned them on the pass so the Meccans couldn't possibly attack from behind. Well, Muhammad's men won this victory very rapidly over the Meccans. The Meccans, a bunch of them died, a bunch of them fled the field, and one of Muhammad's big things was make war and distribute the loot, because it's with the loot you can pay off all your Ansars, all your helpers, and all the men who are fighting with you. So the Muhammad's ground troops immediately pounced on the bodies to rob them of any jewelry, to rob them of clothing. In those days, one suit of clothes was so expensive it could buy you an entire farm. So
Neat.
Muhammad's men went down on the bodies to strip them of everything they had, and the archers in the rear, seeing this, realized that if they didn't get down to the battlefield real fast, there was going to be no more loot left. So they abandoned their posts, and the Meccans came around on Muhammad's troops from behind and pounced when they least expected it. And Muhammad himself was almost killed in this battle. He did kill one of the Meccans himself. But Muhammad was furious, and he needed to figure out a way to keep his men on the battlefield no matter what, so they wouldn't abandon their coasts. He came up with an idea, pussy in paradise. If you go to paradise, not only do you get loot that makes the loot here on the battlefield look absurd by comparison, you get one of those houris, or however you pronounce them, the clear-eyed virgins of paradise whose eyes are dark. Do you know what dark eyes means? A woman's eyes look dark when she looks at you and her pupils dilate, meaning she has real sexual hunger for you. And that was promised with the virgins of paradise. So that's what distinguished
Muhammad's
I
always thought it was kind of a bad deal, though, because they say you get 32 virgins or something like that.
Yeah,
72.
Wow. 72.
But I mean, for eternity, that's really not that many. Like.
Oh, you are so greedy for sex.
Well, come on, we're talking about eternity here. Like, even if you just fuck one century, you only got 720 years.
Right.
Come
well,
on.
That's true. 7,200 years.
Yes.
So,
that's not right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But so you're right. But the fact is that it worked like a charm.
Arithmetic, not my strong point.
Well, if you died killing unbelievers, if you died battling for Islam, you got an express ticket to paradise. Other people were uncertain about whether they were going to make it to paradise or make it to hell, which is a monstrous place. But you knew you'd make it to paradise. Now, here's the other thing. Muhammad, in his 8th surah, his 8th chapter of the Quran, the chapter is called the booty, or the loot. It's really how to divvy up the loot. and it's not
That's
just
more
about
appropriate than you would think, actually.
Well, it's not just about divvying up the clothing. It's not just about divvying up the donkeys. It's not just about divvying up the lands. It's about divvying up the sex slaves. Because you go into a community and you kill its men, but you keep its nubile women and its young girls alive. You keep them alive. Why? Because you divide them up as sex slaves. Some of them you marry. Now, Muhammad married a woman right there on his tent at the battlefield. He had just killed her husband. He had just killed everybody that she'd ever known, every man that she had ever known. Now, if you were that woman and Muhammad and you had been brought out shrieking past the sight of your beheaded husband who had been tortured before he was beheaded by having a fire lit on his chest, can you imagine having somebody with a drill, a fire drill, and fire-making equipment, spark-making equipment, rolling that drill on your chest?
Oh, I do it every Tuesday, personally.
Yes, well, but you're bigger than the rest of us. So, at any rate, she'd been brought up past all of this, and Muhammad threw his cloak over her and said, she's mine. And that night married her. So, if you were that woman, how willingly would you have gone to Muhammad's tent that night? How willingly would
my
you have
pussy been so wet. Oh man, he's so strong. He killed my husband. He murdered my village. Ooh.
He tortured him too. I mean, come on, that's bad.
Like a boss.
He didn't just kill him. He
like
fucked his shit up.
He couldn't put up with that.
He did a Donald Trump on them.
Yeah,
So-
you know. So I mean, basically, you know,
You're fired from life.
when you have a religion that holds this guy up as the pinnacle of morality, and he's, you know,
anything but that.
murdering people, raping women.
Howard, some people in the chat room brought this up. You were probably our first guest ever on Drunken Peasants episode number 3, and today this is episode 156.
Oh my God! Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And we, for our viewers that may not be familiar with you, we did bring up your bio here. It's
right.
A massive bio.
Yeah, I've done a lot of strange things.
Yeah,
You want me to run? But let's go back to the sex business, because this is interesting. So Muhammad also, so he married a 9-year-old girl, right? And in the Hadith, the Quran is the Quran, and then there's the Hadith. And the Hadith are all of the collective sayings of everybody who ever witnessed anything that Muhammad ever did. And in the Hadith, Muhammad says, "Get thee a young girl so that thou mayst play with her." Now imagine what that's like, nude in a tent. So when what's his name, Shekau, the head of Boko Haram in Nigeria, if you've seen his speeches, and I wish I had the quotes in front of me, but he says, "We will kill you. We will turn your daughters into sex slaves. We will turn Putin's daughters into sex slaves. We will turn Obama's daughters into sex slaves. We will turn Goodluck Jonathan's daughters into sex slaves. We will have a wonderful time trading your daughters in the marketplace. And we don't care if your daughters are only 9 years old. We don't care if your daughters are only 10 years old. They're us to enjoy." How do we know that? Because that's what the prophet did, and the prophet is our model. So there's the difference about being the epitome of virtue, which Muhammad is. He's considered the model, the template on whose life you have to build your life. And what did Muhammad do? He commandeered 65 military campaigns. He personally led 27 of them, like the Battle of Uhud, where he killed somebody. And he did all of this sex slave stuff that we've been talking about here. He had any woman that he wanted from among the women left over when there was a conquest. And he accumulated over the 10 years after jihad, after he invented jihad, he accumulated 337 square miles of territory a day. So we automatically associate with the word prophet the words of peace, prophet of peace. But that concept does not exist in Islam. You will find that phrase nowhere. Muhammad called himself lots of names, but the name that seemed to really stick was the prophet of war, and Osama bin Laden called him the prophet of conquest. And Osama bin Laden made it very clear that the ultimate aim of conquest is not Israel or Lebanon or Egypt, it's the United States.
Neat. Okay, we're gonna play some videos. I don't know if you know how this works, but basically, anytime you want to react to it, just start talking, and we'll stop the video clip.
Okay, good.
The first guy we're gonna watch is a guy we've played on the show a few times before, and he really, really hates Jews.
Oh, great.
Yeah, well, he is ethnically he is a Jew also.
Look, okay, there's this saying in Israel.
Yes.
The British hate the French. The French hate the Germans. The Germans hate the Poles. The Poles hate the Jews. And the Jews hate the Jews. So if you want a real heavy-duty Jew hater, go find yourself one of these alienated Jews.
Well, we found one for you.
Okay, great.
I don't know if you can see the screen that we're sharing.
I am sharing it. And did you see your bio on the screen earlier, Howard?
The bio was on the screen, but the video is not coming up on the screen.
The video will come up shortly. Right now, it's a black screen with you in the upper right-hand corner.
Yes, I've got it. That's exactly what I'm seeing.
Cool.
Perfect.
Okay, and don't get too upset if I get carried away by foul language periodically.
No. Foul language is what we encourage.
That's our bread and butter, dude.
Honestly, Howard, one segment that we do is we look up the most perverted Craigslist ads and we read them in various voices.
Right.
Yeah, so that's something that we do on a regular basis here.
Yes.
Right.
So this is just, there's no limits on language that can be used. Absolutely not.
It sounds like this is an infinitely better version of that science fiction theater show with the little heads in the foreground.
That's exactly what it is. In fact, we even watch movies sometimes and do commentaries. So
well, that sounds terrific. Okay, so roll.
Drunken
we'll
Peasant 3000.
Okay, so this is Brother Nathaniel, and the title of this video is "The Jew Who Rule America."
Oh God! Oh, not that again.
Do it.
A far greater tyranny than anything our founding fathers ever faced is now the plight of America. I'm talking about the suffocating grip Jewry has on every component of American life. At the top of the food chain is the privately held Federal Reserve Bank.
Guy, doesn't he? Look at the size of that nose. Mogan David, the Star of David, is in the wrong place. It should be over him. He should not be wearing that cross. There's this thing, Anna Freud, when she and her dad were still, Sigmund Freud, were still in Austria and Germany, and the Nazi Party was on the rise. She saw little Jewish kids dressed in Nazi uniforms goose-stepping on the streets, and she called this identification with the oppressor. There's always an alpha male, there's always a beta male, and there's always an omega, the one at the bottom of the heap that gets picked on by everybody. And Jews have traditionally, for 2,000 years, since anti-Semitism was invented in Alexandria, Egypt, about 2,200 years ago, Jews have traditionally been the group that we pick on. And sometimes living in a Jewish mind at the bottom of society where everybody beats on you is really not that easy.
Shut up, Jew!
Yeah,
I've always heard the stereotype that Jews are bad at sports, but then I always hear Sandy Koufax being brought up.
Well, Jews. Look, how many Jews do you see on NBA or whatever it's called basketball courts?
No, none. I think.
And let me give you a little bit of racist information that's real. That's very real. In the 1970s, when I became the leading black publicist in the music industry, it meant I used to get all of the black newspapers and magazines, and one of them was called Chocolate Singles, and it was just filled with single ads. Now, those were the days when Screw Magazine was running the first sexually explicit ads, and in Screw Magazine, which was for white people, 98% of the ads were for men looking for women. In Chocolate Singles, 98% of the ads were from women looking for men, a very different social mix. And the very first words of every single ad were, must be over 6'1". Now, this is the 1970s. People have grown since then, especially in the black community. What does that tell you the black community was breeding for, self-selecting for? Height.
Tallness.
And athleticism. So it's not surprising that the basketball courts are ruled by blacks, and Jewish women, what do they tend to go for? I want a doctor. They want somebody with credentials. They want somebody with advanced degrees, right? So how many basketball players are going to come out of that selective breeding? Meanwhile, this guy is full of bullshit. A couple of years ago, the Guardian, I think it was, ran an article on the 20 most important banks that rule America, and it put Goldman Sachs in the headline. Well, guess what? When it listed the top 20 banks in order of power, Goldman Sachs was at number 11 on the list, and Goldman Sachs was the only Jewish bank out of 20. That's pitiful. That's really pitiful.
The thing I hate the most about this guy...
you guys suck at ruling the world, man.
The thing I hate most about this guy is that he ruins this backdrop.
Yeah, he has such a beautiful place to film.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's probably in Haifa.
Unless it's a green screen, but I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
Wait, what is my phone doing? Wait a minute. I didn't turn the volume off. It's blinking and blinking. But it's not blinking and blinking here where I can see it. Oh, God. We're going to hang up on the poor baby. It's a friend of mine who ran a business in the space industry, and the business, alas, didn't do well. And so he's down and out now. It's the price of entrepreneurship. Not all entrepreneurships end up wealthy like Donald Trump. By the way, speaking of Donald Trump, in the very beginning of his campaign, there was a clip that was played over and over and over again on TV. And it's Trump on a balcony at Trump Towers coming down the stairs. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
To make an announcement of some sort. Well, have you noticed the woman that precedes him?
No.
She is stacked like crazy. She has breasts the size of
You're talking about his wife there?
Yeah, she might have been his wife. Who knows? And the way her clothing was draped,
his wife is extremely stacked in that regard. So
who?
Right.
Donald Trump?
Shocked. Donald Trump. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Donald Trump's wife is like, she's like a model from Eastern Europe or something like
I'm
that.
shocked.
Anyway, Howard, you're really great at digressing from.
Yeah, but
point.
we want to play some more of Brother Nathaniel.
We've barely even dipped into Brother Nathaniel's beautiful.
Yeah. Listen,
He serves the Fed's principal shareholders, the Rothschild Group, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan Chase, who gouge Americans with interest charged on loans made to the U.S. government from monies printed out of thin air. The greatest scam in the history of Jewish swindling. Moving down the food chain is Jewish finance.
Howard crucified. Is there any
no, he should be stoned to death.
Who are willing to? No,
the penalty
is
crucifixion.
Stoning's too good for him. Only crucifixion. We should light a fire on his chest.
Yeah, that's
TJ,
a good idea.
I would say crucify you,
Where's my kindling
TJ,
equipment?
but you enjoy it too much.
Okay, back to the Brother
back to
Nathaniel.
crazy guy. Yeah.
Isn't he great?
Yeah.
Don't you like him, Howard? I mean, he's so likable.
He looks like a sweet guy to spend time with. He's got that nice smile, but what he's saying is so odious that it makes me want to napalm his mouth.
It's interesting though. Like he's like an anti-Semitic Jew.
Yes, and that's what I've been telling you. I mean, there are rumors that the guy who founded the what's it called, the Inquisition in Spain, Torquemada, the guy who really came up with all the heavy-duty tortures, that he was Jewish. And who was the Inquisition originally there to hound? Jews.
Exactly.
Where we find the usual suspects once again. Goldman Sachs, led by Lloyd Blankfein and Gary Cohn, and Citigroup, where veteran bankers Sanford Vale and Robert Rubin recently placed their Jewish alumnus Jacob Lew as head of U.S. Treasury, keep sending American jobs abroad, creating longer unemployment lines at home. Jewry's stranglehold on American life doesn't stop here. It has its.
I love how he says Jewy's stranglehold. Like I feel like that should be like a mascot or something.
I think it would be awesome if we could get Brother Nathaniel on the show to debate Howard on the show.
I would love to do that. It's
Yeah.
just I would have to restrain. I've never been violent in my life, but somebody like this, tempts you to violence.
So, our fans out there, if you can contact Brother Nathaniel, we'll get him on the show, and we could set up a debate. That would be pretty awesome. We have hosted debates.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
I hate to tell you this. I'm proud of the fact that Jews make a contribution to American society, and because there are very few of us. There are something like 5 million of us in a country of 315 million people.
Is it true that the population of Jews in the U.S. is almost equal to the population of Jews in Israel?
It is said that the population of Jews in the United States is greater than the Jewish population of Israel.
Slightly.
Yeah. They're almost equivalent, but the American is just a little bit bigger. But America is a great big space. Israel's this little tiny sliver of a country. When I was last there, it was before the Yom Kippur War and all of that stuff, and before there was any occupied territory, and people were so claustrophobic in the country that they either saved everything they could and went off to Cyprus for a vacation because it was like living in the tiny little closet. Or Jewish kids, if they were sufficiently brave, would cross the Jordanian border and go to Petra, knowing that if they were caught, they were likely to be tossed back, beheaded with their ears taken off, with their arms and legs taken off, and just the mutilated parts tossed across the border. But it was a chance they took because they were so desperate to see something beyond this teeny weeny little country they were stuck in, which was 15 miles wide at some points, meaning that any artillery, any reasonably modern artillery piece could fire all the way into the country.
TJ, is this guy a Holocaust denier too?
Probably.
Yeah, I
assume he probably
I think we
is.
did see a video about that too.
Iranian television would love him. They'd absolutely.
I'm sure.
I appear on Iranian television all the time, and these days they respect me and they don't use me as a pawn the way they used to. But they would love this guy.
Hands tightly wrapped around our political apparatus as well. With billions of dollars at their command, Jewish lobbies such as AIPAC, the ADL, the American Jewish Committee, and the ACLU fuel the engine of America's demise.
The ACLU is Jewish. Yes, it has had Jewish leaders, which is terrific. I mean, the ACLU does amazing work. The First Amendment and the freedom of speech is profoundly, powerfully important. But, the famous incident in Skokie, Illinois, the ACLU defended the rights of Nazis to have a demonstration in the street of Skokie, Illinois. What all the ACLU is doing, and I believe in what it's doing, although sometimes I disagree with it, but is making sure that that First Amendment is paid attention to. And that wasn't an amendment written by Jews. And it doesn't matter whether it was written by Jews or anybody else. It's worth defending. Okay, back to brother, what's his name? Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
Realization of foreign policy, abortion, mass immigration, and the homosexualization of domestic culture. Linked with political control
what's up with that,
is the
Howard?
emergence.
You know, I've heard this.
He's got his own homosexual problem. I mean, look at this guy. Do you think a woman is going to take him to bed?
We get all sorts of videos from all sorts of weird conspiracy theorists and nutcases, and one that I've heard a lot is that the Jews are pushing a homosexual agenda
for sure
in America.
That's an interesting one because it used to be said in the 1980s by the folks way over on the conservative right, beyond conservative right, that the secular humanists were pushing a homosexual agenda. And the secular humanists were inserting pictures in textbooks. If you look carefully at the little dots, the pixels of which the pictures were made, you could see little boys with erections and little girls with erect nipples and naked boobs and the whole thing. It was crazy. It was insane. These people were saying that their own sexuality had filled them to the eyeballs, and it was so aching to get out of them. What is this thing doing?
Throw it in the trash, Howard.
Yes,
I was gonna say that it's like playing the records backwards and hearing the satanic messages and shit. Like, oh, we discovered everywhere.
Yeah, they used to talk about the secular humanists, and who the fuck were the secular humanists? I mean, what group were they talking about, for God's sakes? Well, it turns out that a guy named Paul Kurtz, who was Jewish in Buffalo, New York, had founded a group called the Secular Humanists, but it was so small that even a person like me had never heard of it. Of course, he founded Prometheus Books, which is now my publisher, so it all gets very incestuous. But the fact is, the move from blaming it on the secular humanists to the Jews, well, okay, so some of the guys who helped Paul Kurtz get this company off the ground were Isaac Asimov, Steve Allen, and the amazing Randy. And I don't know about Randy, but the others
all
were
Jews.
Hold on. Steve Allen is in didn't he host the Tonight Show?
Yeah, he hosted his own version of the Tonight Show. He was big and famous for a long time.
He was pre Johnny Carson Tonight Show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
He was creating the roots from which the Johnny Carson show would spring. So who knows if these guys are Isaac Asimov was Jewish. I don't know about the amazing Randy. I don't know about Steve Allen. But there were some Jewish people involved because we don't do basketball. We do freedom of speech.
That's because everything that happens is always Jews pulling the strings.
Yeah, like
Nathaniel agrees.
Court, every time Michael Jordan dunked a ball, I'm sure it was a Zionist plot.
Yeah, there was a Jew standing above him with a little puppet set. Like,
the retort to that is always
real?
Sandy Koufax. Well, Sandy Koufax, he was Jewish.
Yeah, and how many baseball players have there been since 1898 or whenever it was that Abner Doubleday started the game?
But
and all we can find is maybe 3. Mo Greenberg, that's a name that I've heard once in a while. So maybe there were 2, 3.
Sandy Koufax is one of the greatest ever, though.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So we managed in a game for runs, but we can't seem to cut it in the games where being bred for athleticism is really the name of the game.
Yeah, and there's how many Jews are there?
Hold on, though. Bill Goldberg, though.
Oh yeah, he's a professional wrestler.
Well, no, but prior to that, he actually played for the Atlanta Falcons.
Well,
he was a pro football player for the Atlanta Falcons. He's gigantic. He's like and then he was a professional wrestler, which obviously isn't real sports, but it takes athleticism.
It's sports entertainment.
Right. And he trains in MMA. He was never actual MMA fighter, but because now he's in it. I'm guessing he's pushing 50.
I think you've pretty well and conclusively demonstrated that baseball, football, and basketball are giant Zionist conspiracies.
Yeah,
and that there are hidden messages on those basketballs, and in every move these guys make, and it's time for somebody to come along and decode the the hidden messages.
Yeah,
we found the guy.
I was listening to the Michael Jordan dribbling the basketball in an old game, and actually it was Morse code for Jews rule, bow to your Jewish masters over and over.
I heard
again.
that.
I mean, we've revealed a Jewish secret that no other program has had the courage to reveal.
Our national security state, where Homeland Security is fully in the hands of Jewry.
Oh, wait a minute.
Big Sis is no more.
Wait a minute. Brother, what's your name? Brother Nathaniel, let's get this straight. So Jews are behind the ACLU, which fights for freedom of speech. And Jews are also behind the national security state. And yet it's all a Jewish plot? Give me a break.
Of course.
I mean, okay. Some people, it would be wonderful if the makers of hand grenades made a special version that could be coated with KY jelly and used as a suppository, because poor brother Nathaniel needs one of those. Okay, but enough for my scurrilous comments. Back to brother Nathaniel.
Than Gentile window dressing. The real boys and girls behind our national police state are Michael Chertoff, Joseph Lieberman, Jews don't retire, Dianne Feinstein, head of the Senate Intelligence, Carl Levin, head of the Senate Armed Services, and Bibi Netanyahu, who oversees a myriad of Israeli high-tech.
Well, we know that Bibi Netanyahu really rules the American state. Look, if you go to Iran,
he's my president.
They will tell you in Iran, and they will tell you in anywhere in the Middle East, that the United States is a Zionist puppet. It's an absurd idea. It's a grotesque idea. But how do you disprove it? I mean, the greatest problem, how do you disprove a negative? What's that thing in physics that I keep forgetting about? You can't disprove a double negative or something of the sort. He's right. The people he's citing are Jewish. The people he's citing are both on the right and the left.
But I face this problem a lot as an atheist when people come to me and say things like, "Prove atheism is true."
Can't do it.
What do you mean? I can't do that. There's no possible way I can do that.
You got to do it. Oh, checkmate, atheist.
I also can't 100% disprove Santa Claus or any other unfalsifiable bullshit.
I have a question. Why is this guy dressed in a Russian Orthodox outfit?
I don't know. Maybe he's cosplaying as somebody.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, back to his golden words.
All right, let's hear some more.
Obviously golden words because he's Jewish.
Yeah.
And look at Jewish names.
Jews control so much that Jews even control anti-Semitism. That's
right,
how deep the fucking well goes.
That is hardcore.
Put your finger on it.
Companies that operate throughout the architecture of both the DHS and the NSA. In entertainment, Jewry dominates showbiz, where Jews like Larry David, who...
Okay, but Jews are pretty funny,
Yes, that's one area where we're good. We're good as schlemiels and schlemazels.
I agree.
So, yes, Larry David, but Larry Charles, when Larry Charles came over to this apartment, Larry Charles is the guy who executive produced the show, Larry David show that he's talking about. And he made Borat, and he did some Seinfeld episodes, and he came over here to interview me. Well, the guy who ended up plunking himself on the bed that's right next to me, right here, hang on, that bed, is Bill Maher. And I did not get the impression that Larry Charles is Jewish, but who knows? You never know. They're sneaky, They disguise themselves as all kinds of things.
They're sneaky.
So did you say you had Bill Maher in bed? Because that's pretty scandalous.
Yes, I had Bill Maher in this bed for 2 hours, and the interview was on the outtakes for his film Religulous.
It's pretty weird. We were in Amsterdam just this past spring, and Bill Maher happened to be there, and people were telling us that because we were staying in the middle of downtown Amsterdam, and people were telling us that when they were coming to hang out with us, fans of the show came to hang out with us, they said they saw Bill Maher standing around in Dam Square over there.
Yeah. Wow, it's too bad you didn't get to meet him. It was one of the strangest encounters I've ever had. Bill Maher, completely dressed in a suit, immaculately made up, walked into this room, lay down on this bed next to me. Again, that bed.
Did you snuggle?
No, we did not do that, but
there wasn't
we
enough
talked
time.
about him for 2 hours, and I think Maher was thoroughly offended by everything that I had to say. And
Now-
when the interview was over, 2 hours of an interview in an intimate setting, a bed with a crew of 5 people around us, Bill Maher got up. He didn't say, that was nice, or thank you very much, or any of the little social niceties that would be essential to most of us in a situation like that. He got up and he walked out like a robot, like a marionette. And now, God knows, 6 years later or something like that, guess who's mouthing the very lines he got from this bed about Islam? Bill Maher, without having a clue. So he avoids me like the plague. God knows why.
Have you heard Bill Maher's anti-vaxxer rhetoric that he spews?
The anti-vaccination rhetoric?
Yes.
He's into the anti-vaccination stuff?
Yes, he is.
Oh, my God.
He has been.
He claims not to be, though.
But he has been on the record saying anti-vaxxer talking points.
Yeah, and he'll say he's not anti-vax, and then he'll say a bunch of anti-vax.
Yeah, at the very least, there's some
afterwards.
cognitive dissonance going on.
He's also into a lot of the
right.
natural healing kind of stuff, too.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Naturalistic
the other day-
fallacies galore.
The other day, somebody sent me a message in which he'd gotten a text from his would-be literary agent, and it said something like that he would only be obligated to his contract, or he could break his contract after with 6 months' notice. That's what it was. But somehow, when the agent meant to put in the word contract, she put in something like in slavery. She accidentally typed a word that had to do with slavery. And so I put up a little note on Facebook about the fact that you notice every once in a while when you're typing and typing away that your brain has one vocabulary and your fingers have another, because very often a word that you didn't intend will come popping up on your screen that you typed, and it will be totally perfectly spelled. Apparently the self below the floorboards of the self that does your typing for you, when it goes off the wall, has a better
Happens to me
sense of
all the
spelling than you
time.
do. Yeah.
Happens to me all the time. I mean, I'm always writing because I'm writing videos and I'm writing, other stuff as well. And I notice that phenomenon all the time. We're gonna change gears. We're gonna get off of Brother Nathaniel, and we're gonna listen. We're gonna watch a story about Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, this is a CNN.
The defenders of human rights.
This is a CNN news clip. The headline is Saudi Arabia asked to halt man's beheading crucifixion.
Oh, well, that's a very hot one today, because this guy's life is in the balance.
All right, here it is.
Let's take a look.
Friends and family describe Ali Al-Nimr as an optimistic and outgoing young man who loves photography, movies, cars and motorcycles.
We'll see if his
But
optimism
today,
pays
he sits
off.
in a Saudi prison, condemned to death for the crimes he allegedly committed as a teenager. Al-Nimr was arrested in 2012 during pro-democracy protests inspired by the Arab Spring when he was just 17. Convicted of charges including belonging to a terror cell, attacking police with Molotov cocktails, incitement and stoking sectarianism, according to Saudi state media.
Isn't beheading, crucifixion and beheading, it's just...
Which one comes first?
The crucifixion.
Okay.
I guess they crucify him till he's almost dead, and then they behead him. Is that how that works? Or they crucify him?
I thought crucifixion was a Roman thing. Why are they doing this in the Middle East? Or am I wrong?
It was a Roman thing, and they've picked it up, and they've picked it up big time, especially ISIS. ISIS is very into it. But ISIS beheads you first, and then it puts you on a cross.
Well, that's counterproductive.
Yeah, but
so wait, is that
do.
what Saudi Arabia is going to do too, or are they going to crucify him first and then behead him?
I don't think they'll crucify him at all, because they're trying to look like a civilized state. But Saudi Arabia is up against a very big problem. There is a Shiite population. Saudi Arabia is Sunni. There's this huge war in the entire Middle East going on between the Shiites and the Sunnis.
Yeah.
The entire Syrian, what we've been sold as a Syrian civil war, is a proxy war between the Shiites of Iran and the Sunnis of Saudi Arabia. It's a sock puppet war being waged by proxy armies. Saudi Arabia has a problem. It is a Sunni state. The kings and royal family of Saudi Arabia are Sunnis. But there is a little sliver of land that has a mostly Shiite population, a population that can easily be stoked by Iran, which is trying to stoke any population that it can to take over all the marbles in the Islamic world.
It's kind of the same thing what happened in Iraq, where Saddam Hussein, he was a Sunni, and then when he fell out of power, the Shia population in Iraq kind of started to become more prominent, and then that's where they were getting, and then they got backing from Iran in the region also.
Exactly. Well, they didn't just. I'll tell you the story of that in a second, but the point here is that the little patch of land that the Shiites live on has almost all of Saudi Arabia's oil. And the Saudis are scared shitless that this population of Shiites will either try to kill them, because that's what they're being told to do by Iran, or will try to go independent and ally with somebody else and take away their oil. That would be the end of Saudi Arabia as we know it. And the power plays that are going on in the Middle East are just this nasty. And kids like this throwing rocks, when you get a kid like throwing rocks, he's a potential killer. A guy was killed in Israel last week by a rock thrower. He was hit in the head by a rock, and that was the end of him. He lasted in the hospital for several days, and then he was gone. So there's a more serious problem going on here than CNN is letting on to. Should this kid be beheaded? Not on your life. But is he a total innocent? Well, if he's anything like the stone throwers and the Molotov cocktail throwers we've seen all over the world, those are lethal weapons. All of them are lethal weapons.
I agree with you there.
David did away with Goliath with a stone.
But if someone asked me, would you take the crucifixion first or the beheading? I definitely choose the beheading first.
You'd be wise to choose that.
Well, you just don't. You're not sexually adventurous enough.
Now he is set to be executed,
Hold on one
beheaded
second.
in this
Let's listen
public
a little more.
square in Riyadh, with the added rare punishment of crucifixion. His body displayed after his death as a warning.
Okay, so he would be beheaded first and then crucified as a warning to let people know, like, don't fuck with us or this will be you.
Yeah, but the world fortunately is protesting against this.
I'll tell you what, though.
Here's how Iran gets into the picture. Once upon a time in 1981, 2 years after the Iranian Revolution, there was this big upheaval in Iran, and the revolutionaries managed to throw out the guy who'd been running the place, the Shah, and who'd been running it with a lot of support from us. They threw him out despite the fact that their standard of living had been going up dramatically. But it turns out that people have revolutions when their standard of living is going up, not when their standard of living is being held down. They managed to get rid of him. And the secular revolutionaries thought they had won the revolution. They were exulting. But this little-known guy called the Ayatollah Khomeini had been holed up in France, and he flew in from France with a whole bunch of copies of audio tapes of his. And he and his gang took over the revolution. And the seculars were, well, a lot of the seculars were executed. When he
Good
took
riddance
over,
to him,
well,
secular pieces of shit.
He told his followers, this is the real Islamic revolution. This is the Islamic revolution that comes from Muhammad and God himself. So within minutes, we're going to take over the entire Islamic world. The entire Islamic world is 13,500 miles wide and contains 11 times more territory than the conquest of Alexander the Great, 7 times the size of the Roman Empire, and it's 5 times the size of the Roman Empire, and it's 7 times the size of the United States. He's talking about taking over a big bag of marbles. And the bag of marbles that was going to go first was Iraq, the country right next door that shared holy cities with Iran. It was going to be easy. No problem. You got God on your side, right? Well, so they went to war with Iraq in order to create another Islamic revolution in Iraq and make Iraq a part of a grander ummah, of a one-party state. And it didn't work. They fought for 7 years, 1981 to 1988. They spent $1 trillion. They lost 1 million lives. And they ended up in a standoff, a total standoff. And then somebody in Iranian intelligence said, remember the ad, let's let Mikey do it?
No.
So there's this bunch of kids sitting around the table, and they're looking at this.
Oh, it's cereal. Right. It's a cereal ad.
Yeah, the cereal thing,
right.
yeah.
So somebody in the Iranian intelligence came up with this brilliant idea. Let's let Mikey do it. Why don't we just do something that's really low budget? We'll falsify a bunch of documents. We'll get a bunch of people who will parade themselves as defectors from Saddam's Iraq, and we'll send them to the United States. And we'll convince the Americans that that Saddam Hussein is manufacturing nuclear weapons and chemical and biological weapons. Then the Americans will knock Saddam off his throne for us, and they have more trillions of dollars than we do. And guess what? It worked. It worked. That's why George Bush Jr., otherwise known as George Bush the Gullible, and his vice president.
I used to call him King George.
Yeah, well, so King George the Dummy. So that's why his administration swallowed all this stuff and we went to war in Iraq. I mean, here we've been hit by a group, Al-Qaeda, that was headquartered in Afghanistan. Why the hell were we hitting Iraq? Because it worked. Getting phony documents and defectors, they got these defectors even on 60 Minutes. Well, when you reach 60 Minutes, you reach Congress, the CIA, military intelligence, and the White House.
Let me ask you a question about it's not exactly on the same line of well, I mean it's a related thing. What do you make of this this rift among liberals where it seems like the more like PC social justice warrior type liberals are all galvanizing to defend Islam from what they perceive as like bigotry against Islam, Islamophobia, whatever, and then the other side of the left that points out that, you know, the values of Islam are pretty illiberal and not really in line with liberal values at all, so, you know, we really shouldn't be siding with those values in any way.
TJ,
where do you fall?
You're a
on that
racist
spectrum,
just for saying
what
that.
do you think of the whole debate that's been going on? I mean, you said that Bill Maher jacked some of your lines earlier. You know, Bill Maher's gotten a lot of shit for those lines too.
Yeah,
and that's been actually like
he's finally absorbed it, even though he doesn't remember where he got it from. This liberal thing bothers the hell out of me because I'm basically a liberal, even though I try to float way above the cliches of both the left and the right.
Try to be above the paradigm,
cliches, yeah, those cliches are monstrous. And it's hard to get above the paradigm, but, you know, that's where I'm stuck, above the paradigm, outside the box. And the liberals who've been conned into thinking that the Palestinians are a poor, oppressed people and that that Israel is the new Nazi state, which I was told by a bunch of liberals who came over to visit me when I was still stuck in bed. One of them was number 3 in the Communist Party of the United States. They said, never say you're a Zionist.
Communism.
Equivalent of saying you're a Nazi. So I think they've been conned. I think that they don't understand that Saudi Arabia alone has spent $80 billion on conning them. The biggest PR budget in the history of the world. That Saudi Arabia is not alone in conning them. There are 57 Islamic nations. All of those nations have representation in Washington, D.C. All of them have lobbyists on K Street. All of them have a PR apparatus. And you add up the Islamic lobby's budget, and it's beyond belief, utterly beyond belief. They've been conned, and they've been gullible enough to fall for it. And they've been gullible enough to fall for it for a simple reason. I don't know, TJ, I might have told you this story before. But once upon a time in the 1940s, a bunch of guys were exploring what's called the frustration aggression hypothesis. A hypothesis that says when you get frustrated, what do? You get angry and take it out on somebody else. And they'd pretty much proven it. They did an experiment in which they put 7 rats on the equivalent of a hot plate, and they turned up the heat to scald their feet to see how the rats would respond, if they would respond with anger of any kind. Well, the rats went through an instant process of what we now call quorum sensing. They felt out immediately who the 6 strongest were and who the 1 weakest was. And then guess what they did? The 6 strongest got together and beat the shit out of the weakest. If you look at the history of societies, every society has its alpha male, its leader, its beta male, its lieutenant, its joker, and its nerd. It's one on the bottom of the group that everybody gets to pick on. And Jews have been traditionally the ones that you get to pick on for 2,200 years. And Muhammad built Islam on the bones of Jews. Every time he did not quite win a battle, every time he couldn't pay not only his followers, but his helpers, his ansars, every time he couldn't pay them off with the 2 payoffs that really counted, loot and glory, the ability to just brag your ass off. When he couldn't give them that, he picked a Jewish village and he attacked it. And he either did an ethnic cleansing and took over all of its territory and all of its goods, or in one case he killed all of the men and took all of the women as sex slaves. And he deliberately killed all the men and took the women as sex slaves to terrify the shit out of the people of Mecca. Because when he took Mecca,
speaking of terrifying shit, Let's
Yeah.
change gears again to
Okay.
Donald Trump.
Finally.
We got a Trump video
Finally,
here.
someone reasonable on this show. Finally.
Otherwise known, Donald
Statement,
Trump, otherwise
I guess
known
we've
as
been
the
trying to turn
Bigfoot of
around. Is
politics.
Donald Trump says that Obama is waging a war against Christians in this country. I thought that was like the harshest thing I've actually heard about Obama. I don't think it's fair, but it was.
Is that really the harshest thing you've heard about him? I mean,
yeah, I doubt that.
No, I've heard
Come
far
on.
harsher things.
Yeah,
He's a
me
closet
too.
Marxist, and he's trying to socialize the entire country, and he's a closet Muslim, and he's trying to take over the entire government for the Muslim Brotherhood. And he
And he's
wasn't
definitely
born
a
in the
communist.
United States. Yeah, so this is this is not the worst thing in the world. But how they could say he's attacking Christians, I have no clue, except for that he's for a secular government.
Well, what it boils
So
down to
Jefferson-
for them, mostly is the gay marriage thing, which
Well,
Obama didn't even really like engineer that, but most of the conservative Christians are framing the federalization of gay marriage as an attack on Christian values.
Obama didn't even support gay marriage during his first.
Yeah, civil unions only.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was only his second term.
He saw which way the wind was blowing, though.
The
So
tricky thing is, remember those 7 rats on the hot plate and how they picked a victim and then beat the shit out of him, all of them? Well, when we humans do this in the context of human societies and we demonize a group, we project all of our sexual frustrations on them, all the things we would love to do sexually but never get a chance to do. And so the easiest thing in the world is to attack with sexuality. Back in the days of Pompeii, before the city was blizzarded by the effusions from a volcano, there were political campaigns. And in those political campaigns, to attack your rival, which was a big thing, you put up graffiti. And the graffiti would say, so-and-so was a whoremonger. In other words, you would point to this guy.
I would vote for that person if I saw that.
Well, no, so-and-so is going to make you a whoremonger. At any rate,
Neat.
A big promise, yes. But the point is that when you attack sexuality, you attack something that's sort of built into the system. And it's built into the system for a very simple reason. When chimpanzees establish a dominance hierarchy, and there's an alpha male, the alpha male gets all the sexual privileges in the group. He gets to fuck any female in the group that he wants. And when another male tries to fuck a female, the alpha male comes up and stops it, absolutely stops it. So if anybody of lesser status is going to get any nookie, they have to do it behind a rock or behind a tree, or they have to be very sneaky about it. Well, we're all
Gotta be
built
covert.
you gotta be like TJ.
Yeah. We're all built with those same instincts that operate in that alpha male. In fact, so are all the other chimpanzees. They're built so that if they were allowed to take over the alpha male position, they too would police the territory and make sure nobody else had sex with them. So
And
what are we
Donald
doing?
Trump is the alpha male, right?
Well, Donald Trump tries, and he certainly demonstrated that he was the alpha male when he had that stacked female parading in front of him.
Yeah, and also that he's constantly ahead in the polls, and he's the richest, and he can constantly brag about how great he is.
And he has the best hair. Come on.
Yes, and the best hair. The best hair you've ever seen.
Bar none.
Have you ever thought about doing that, Howard, where you just grow your hair really long and then like comb it over the top of your head clumsily?
My hair is a little too wild to do that with.
You just need the right products.
Yeah, well, I guess it could. I mean, my poor mother, she was in a state of torment. Her hair never straightened. It was like mine. It was absolutely uncontrollable. But no, Donald Trump's, is that a wig that he wears?
I believe it is his
I think
natural
that's his
hair. I
hair.
think what it is he just has very little hair, but he does.
It's
as
a comb
much as
over,
he-
yeah.
He does as much as he can
It's
to
a
make
series
it seem
of.
like
It's a series of.
It's a professional
comb-overs.
comb over.
Does
He's
he
mastered the
have
art of
somebody
comb
do
over.
that for him every morning when he wakes up?
Probably.
He says that he spends 2 hours on his hair a day.
Oh my God! What a waste of time! But of course,
I
it's
know.
Donald
Yeah,
Trump's
really.
time, and
2
Donald
hours
Trump's
for
time-
something that looks like a cat spit it up.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, I hope that a few of his investments have actually paid off. Trump Tower, I suppose, does okay. His casinos really didn't. Carly Fiorina was right. How's a guy who went belly up 4 times, who went bankrupt 4 times, claim he can run an economy? But Donald Trump doesn't seem to know anything about much
Hey,
of
but
anything. in the United
Howard,
States.
those guys that he ripped off were assholes anyway, so it's okay.
That's what he said. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
He said, well,
I'm
you know,
I'm
they were-
sure
they
that
were
when
jerks.
When he was buttering them up for money, do you think he told them they were assholes?
Nope. Probably not then.
He conveniently forgot then.
But after he
Yeah.
wasted all their money in investments, then they became
then
assholes.
They were assholes and deserved it. No, there's something seriously wrong with Donald.
Kind of
There's
seems
something
like he's the asshole, doesn't it? Pretty strange.
Well, the difficulty is that the very policies of the Republican Party have been the same since 1872. Take all regulations away from the super rich and take all tax burdens away from the super rich. And every time they've managed to try it, they've brought about a depression, a huge, catastrophic, monstrous, enormous depression. The long depression of 1873 to 18. What was it? 18 or I don't know. It ended about.
Idiot doesn't even know when the first depression ended. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is the first one that occurred under this particular policy of removing regulation from the super rich and stopping and not taxing.
But you don't even know the year where it ended. So obviously you don't know what you're talking about.
Liberal nonsense.
I haven't looked. I haven't consulted my notes today. But the depression of 1929 to 1939, that was on the Republicans' watch. And then, of course, the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, that was on George Bush Jr.'s lot.
But we all know those were just Clinton policies.
Catching up.
Coming back to catching up with him. Well, the point is the Republican Party has never learned from these catastrophic failures. And the Republican Party is a party that appeals to ignorance. Why? Because if anybody knew the history, they wouldn't be in favor of these particular policies. Once upon a time, there was a more flexible Republican Party. Under Lincoln, there was a far more flexible Republican Party. Under Teddy Roosevelt, there was a far more flexible Republican Party. Under Dwight D. Eisenhower, there was a far more flexible.
Teddy Roosevelt ended up leaving the Republican Party and running, what was it,
with
Bull
the Bull
Moose?
Party. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. But one way or the other, these guys
Too bad they
managed
never
to
caught
have
on.
policies based on brain work. Well, it doesn't take any brain work to keep reiterating a policy that's left over from 1872. You just repeat it like a parrot and ignore it when it doesn't work. So the Republican Party doesn't have learning in its collective brain, at least not right now.
Learning's overrated.
Pretty impressive.
Bull Moose
Party.
Well, but there's a lot of people in this country that do feel that there has been, unfair, treatment.
Makeup job.
I know, right? She looks like Elvira's cousin or something. I don't even know.
Well, she looks like poor baby. Give her another 5 years, and those cheeks are going to really puff up and fold over themselves, and she's going to look a little bit like a bulldog. But we shouldn't say that because they're sexist.
That's so mean.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna the Twitter feminists are gonna eat you alive, Howard. The Twitter feminists are gonna eat you alive.
Masculinity so fragile.
Let's just make this equal sex by pointing out the fact that Donald Trump is even worse because Donald Trump's got this puffed up, almost drunkard face, and his belly is probably a hideous thing to see. His poor wife. And no, she's not a poor wife. That's why she's his wife, because he's rich. And that comb over is really, So we've got two people.
Now she's a winner to be with Trump.
Look, nature is not kind, and nature makes us rumple, crumple, and sag. And nature's about to do that to the two people in front of us on the screen, or is already doing it to poor Donald. But we'll ignore that.
I took some LSD and I was watching. I was watching a Donald Trump interview.
I like how that story starts.
Yeah, I took some LSD and I was watching a Donald Trump interview, and the pores on his face just kept getting bigger and bigger. Seriously though, but even on his nose, just
that someday Donald Trump is going to be a poor man.
Oh!
Yes, you were seeing the future, TJ.
Neat.
You had crossed into another plane.
The Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Christians, there's been statements that the president has made that has really been cause for alarm when he's addressed groups, and the way he's talked about Christians and the holy wars and all of that, saying that liking it to what some of these radical terrorists have done about religious extremism.
Does she have any substantiation for this bullshit?
It's Fox News, so no,
not at all.
Oh my God! It's fantasy television. Okay, back to the news.
The news.
Fox News.
Fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced.
Faux news.
And accurate.
showing the parallel between the two. As far as Trump's concerned with respect to this, I think that to me seems like a complete plant. It was a setup. It just sounds fake
It's a joke,
and phony
right?
and ridiculous.
It's almost comical the way that was delivered.
He had an opportunity to go ahead and just handle it and correct the record, et
Is this
cetera, et
Alex
cetera, and
Jones
say,
light
listen,
now?
don't talk like that about the President of the United States. But then the guy said, well, my question actually is. So then he answered the question. It was, you know, you've got to be so on your A game every second at this point, because especially when you're a front runner, this just goes to show you've got to be on
I'm
top.
not sure it was a plan. I mean, maybe it was a joke, it wasn't. But if you actually
All right,
if
there's
you've
no
been
question about this. Whether it was a plant or not, that person was enunciating a point of view that has been pushed in the right-wing corners of Republicanism for the last 8 years or so, ever since Barack Obama appeared as a candidate. It's a fantasy, you know, this business that he wasn't born in the United States, that he's a closet Muslim, all of that stuff is total fantasy. But I know lots of people who believe it. You didn't need to have a plan.
I think Hillary supporters pretty much spearheaded that.
Well, that's a rumor, and Hillary denied it today. But you know, it's hard to believe Hillary. We have these weird.
No, hold on. It's not hard to believe Hillary. It's
almost
impossible.
It came
to
out when
believe
he was.
Hillary.
It came out when he was running
Don't
against
insult Hillary,
Hillary.
TJ.
There was no Republican candidate anywhere at that point that he was competing with directly. He was competing against Hillary, and the rumors came out the day after the Iowa caucus. That's when people got the mass emails.
He's
Really?
Muslim.
Well, I saw them showing up all over the Republican, the real right wing.
Oh well, yeah. Well, they ran. They ran.
Oh, they've
with
embraced
of
it
course.
completely. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I hate Hillary
but here's
though.
the real problem. Here's the problem with this election cycle so far. We don't have. We're aching for an authentic candidate. We're aching for a candidate whose honesty we can believe. We were sold a bill of goods under Barack Obama. Change. Yes, that's what we were sold. Change. Transparency. Honesty. We got instead the NSA cover-ups without Donald Snowden and Chelsea Manning. We'd have no clue as to how big we were being snowed, how big the blindfolds were on our eyes. The only credible candidates, the only seemingly authentic candidates are Bernie Sanders, who I think misunderstands how an economy works, but at least he's telling it for real as he sees it.
And Donald Trump, I think.
No, well,
I think he's authentic.
Who understands how an economy works better, Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders?
Donald Trump, but he's a monster, or Bernie Sanders, but his ideology is monstrous.
I see.
So
I
we're stuck in a peculiar. Marco Rubio is one of the most compelling speakers that I've ever seen. He is pretty damned amazing. The problem is, you know, we need a scorecard. Why has nobody shown us which billionaire is behind which candidate? Because every candidate had to go out there and find his own billionaire to make it as a candidate, to make it this far. Who's behind Marco Rubio? I have no clue. And in American politics, these things should be labeled as clearly as the contents of a ketchup bottle are labeled. We should
So
know
why
who's making the major
don't you
contributions.
like Bernie Sanders? Because I think everyone on the show supports Bernie Sanders.
True.
I like Bernie Sanders. I don't know about voting for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders says that the problem with our economy is we have 23 different kinds of deodorant, and that's what we're wasting our time and our money on, and we should be putting that money into lifting the poor or something like that. Bernie Sanders, and that we are following this myth, says Bernie Sanders, of an economy that thrives on growth. We don't need a growth economy. We need our economy to stop growing. You stop growing our economy, you stop a basic process that's vital to this very cosmos itself, something that the universe has been doing ever since it invented life on this particular planet. Growth has been a part of life's modus operandi from the beginning. Those 27 different forms of deodorant, people use goods like that to distinguish their identities. And in distinguishing their identities, they end up making many different contributions to society. They're each looking for a space on the platform of attention. And by doing that, they enrich the society. They create the creative elements that make a society move forward. These things may seem trivial to us, but that's because we're stupid. That's because we don't see what's right under
I would
our
say
nose.
that anyone who identifies with their deodorant is stupid also, though. But but the thing is, though, I mean, like, I like growth. I mean, growth is good. But, I mean, like, isn't growth tethered to resources to an extent? I mean, can we really just afford to grow and grow and grow? I mean, doesn't that eventually don't we eventually create a bubble that leads to a big collapse?
Well, for every ounce of bio stuff, and that doesn't just mean stuff we've consumed and turned into part of the process of life. It means the things that plants have consumed, that animals have consumed, that bacteria have consumed. For every ounce of that living stuff on planet Earth today, there are 120 million ounces of dead stuff just waiting to be kidnapped, seduced, and recruited into the process of life, into this grand experiment of life that we're a part of. So the growth, the running out of resources line is not for real. We're running out of imagination. I mean, bacteria 2 miles beneath our feet are turning granite into bio stuff right now. If they are so smart, why are we so stupid? You know, if they can do this, why do we see all this stuff under our feet as not a resource for life at all? Why don't we understand that our mission is to do what every single other plant and animal on this planet and every bacterial colony has done? Grow our asses off to kidnap, seduce, and recruit as many dead atoms as possible into this collective enterprise.
But wouldn't you? I mean, like, don't we have to learn things from something like the Dust Bowl or something like that, where we treat resources too casually and just feel like they're unlimited, and we have to understand the properties of the things we use, not just
we have to learn from every catastrophe, and whenever we can, we have to harness catastrophe and turn it into a power source. That's what we did with fire. I mean, can you imagine what fire was 1 million years ago to our ancestors? A forest fire could catch a blaze, and then what would happen to the grasslands? They would catch fire in a very short amount of time. You had no place to run, absolutely no place to run. If TJ, you had been the clever one who had said one day, I'm going to go in there while all that stuff is burning, I'm going to grab a little piece of that stuff, the flame, and I'm going to tame it on behalf of humanity, all of us sane Australopithecus or whatever we were, Homo erectus, would have said, you are crazy. You are nuts. You go in there, you're going to be burned to a crisp. But somebody had the courage to go in and capture flame. And we've done the same with the explosions in an automobile engine. Those are explosions, for God's sakes. And they are disasters, and yet we harvest them. We've learned to harvest a small number of the natural things that happen around us. There are many, many more things. I mean, we've harvested the lightning. That's what provides the electricity for all practical purposes in our computers right now. But that's nothing compared to the number of challenges that are out there just waiting to be harnessed. This is one of the reasons that Bernie Sanders as a choice, and I love Bernie Sanders in his own way, and Donald Trump is such a disappointment. These people don't have vision.
But don't vote. You can be against Bernie Sanders, but man, just don't vote for Hillary. Please don't do it.
Well, I probably can't do that. Because
have you voted for Hillary before, Howard? Have you voted for Hillary before?
No, I've never voted for Hillary. I've voted for Barack Obama twice.
Well, I wasn't. Do you live in? Did you live in her senatorial district?
I'm not sure. The wife that I had at that time went and gave her a copy of one of my books, but that was in upstate New York someplace. I'm not sure where her Senate seat was.
It was in New York State, so.
It's New York. That's right. As a senator, she would have represented New York State. No, I don't remember voting for Hillary, and I was probably in bed and couldn't vote. No, I had an absentee ballot. Who knows? But I've come to distrust Hillary profoundly because I don't have a sense of who she really is.
That's what I feel too. Like, she feels very reptilian, and I don't feel like her true personality ever comes across. She feels very like manufactured and calculated, and every word out of her mouth. I don't really get a sense of her like humanity at all on any level.
That's where authenticity comes in. Now, when I was stuck in bed back in God knows when, 1990, somewhere between 1998 and 2001. A friend emailed me from Texas, and he said, I've always wanted to work with you on a project. Can I come up to your bedroom and discuss one with you? So he came up here and he said, look, I'm involved with a guy who is probably going to be a presidential candidate. And you've taken people like Prince and turned them into superstars, and Joan Jett and a whole bunch of others. And would you please be willing to possibly work with me on this candidate? And I said, basically, I don't care which party it is. This country is dying for authenticity. This country is dying for honesty. If he will let me do what I used to do with my rock stars, demand anywhere from 1 to 3 days of his time after I've read every word that has ever been printed in the press about him or from him, and get a sense of his soul and get him to base his entire campaign on who he really is and what he's really passionate about. If I'm allowed to do that, then yes, I'll get involved. Now, it turned out that the candidate that he was talking about was George Bush Jr. I think that's George W. Bush.
George W. Bush. Yeah, they got rid of the Herbert for him for some reason.
Yeah, but that shows you how long it's been since we've had a candidate you could trust or believe in. It goes back 15 years at least. In fact, if you traced it back, it probably goes back more like 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, well, I think Obama was a candidate we could trust and believe in. He just wasn't a president we could trust and believe in, you know?
Yeah, it's shocking, but we do need an authentic leader. And if Donald Trump turns out to be that authentic leader, God help us.
But, I mean, do you think he is authentic? Because he seems very authentic to me. Like, he comes out, he's a braggart, he pretty much wears his ego on his sleeve. You pretty much know all of his personality faults because he doesn't even think they are faults. He's just like, yeah, I'm an asshole, I'm ruthless, I'm vain and self-absorbed, and I'm the greatest.
You don't think it's false bravado at all? You think it's genuine?
Yeah, well, you've just given a brilliant summation of Donald Trump and the message that he gets across. And the other message that he gets across is everything will be better with me. I will make it work.
You know, I remember someone asked him about Putin. What are you going to do about Putin? And his answer was basically, Putin will like me. I'm Donald Trump.
That was his answer.
I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna shake Putin's hand. We're gonna bond. We're gonna be friends. It's gonna be great.
Right.
And people are like, yeah, that's a substantive answer. It's like, that's not a substantive answer at all. That's just total bullshit.
They just want rhetoric.
He's basically saying, I will accomplish it because I'm Donald Trump.
It's just rhetoric.
I'm me, right. And the difficulty with that is this. If Donald Trump, who probably said lines very much like this to the investors that he got together, the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars he used for his casinos in Atlantic City, who probably said, everything's going to be wonderful, you're going to like it, trust me, I'm Donald Trump. And then he fucked them in the end, right? He went bankrupt in the end. If Donald Trump couldn't handle the problem of Atlantic City, and if he felt that he did brilliantly because he knew when to get out, he knew when to go bankrupt, there is no such thing as opting out of the relationship with Russia. There is no such thing as opting out of the relationship with China. These are serious things that are going to go on for generations to come, and you can't run away from them. And Donald Trump ran away. He ran away 4 times. He wasn't able to do what he promised, and then he demonized the people who gave him the money to do it. And that's the argument of one of my video clips on the Howard D. Rungus series. If he's fucking the people who gave him money, what's he going to do to you and me?
He's going to fuck us twice as hard.
Yes, because we count for far less than those people, and he's going to demonize us. If we oppose him, he's going to demonize us. He's going to say we're being mean to him. Except if he's president, he doesn't have to use a nice word like mean. He can use what he really means. He can say that we're doing things that are unacceptable. If you thought Nixon's enemies...
Traitors, terrorists, whatever.
Yeah. So if you thought Nixon's enemies list was a problem and a threat to this country, Donald Trump's enemies list, which he won't think twice about, because that's his due. I'm Donald Trump. I'm Donald Trump. How dare they challenge me? You can kiss your First Amendment goodbye. And my First Amendment, which I live on, without freedom of speech, I'd be a dead man.
Yeah, me too.
Howard,
well, maybe it's not so bad then, TJ.
Howard, did you the last time you were with us, we talked about your book about how you accidentally started the 60s.
Right.
Have you written any new books since then?
Well, I wrote the book The God Problem, How a Godless Cosmos Creates, and that's about to come out in paperback on February 2nd. And Barbara Ehrenreich wrote the introduction, and she says that the book, in essence, she says that the book is the cusp of a revolution in science, that for 350 years, science has been necrophilia in disguise. To understand how a pigeon flies, the first thing you do is kill the pigeon. Then you cut its tissues up in little tiny pieces. You can see them through a microscope, and you take another bunch of tissues and they run them through a centrifuge. Everything you do assumes that deadness is the answer to the universe. And what she says is we're on the cusp of a living universe, of really looking at what living means. And the book that's going to start this, the book that is the harbinger of this, is The God Problem, How a Godless Cosmos Creates. So bless Barbara Ehrenreich for saying that. And then I asked my publisher for a year off. I got another book coming up, but I haven't written it yet. I've only written 40,000 words. It's called Everything You Know About Nature is Wrong, The Case of the Consumerist Cosmos. I asked my publisher to give me a year off because I have wanted my own television series ever since I saw Jacob Bronowski and The Ascent of Man in something like 1970. And I've taken a year off to really seriously pursue that. So the television series I'm after is called The Grand Unified Theory of Everything in the Universe, including Sex, Violence, and the Human Soul. And it tells you if you try to put your finger through your palm like this, it doesn't go through. Why doesn't it go through? Because of protons. So are the protons, if you can't put them through if you can't put the protons in here, past the protons in here, are those protons a part of you? And then the next question is, are you less than 100 years old? And no matter who I ask that question of, the answer is usually yes. Well, then how old are the protons that make you you? They're 13.7 billion years old. They were born in the first sliver of a sliver of a sliver of a nanosecond of this cosmos existence. So if I'm going to tell you your story,
time, yo.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to tell you, if I'm going to have to tell you your story, I have to begin with the Big Bang and take it up to here. And I've broken that down into 77 mini episodes, and every single one of them is a shock and a surprise. It's told from a point of view you never expected before. So that's the premise of The Gut, the Grand Unified Theory of Everything in the Universe, including Sex, Violence, and the Human Soul, and we're working on it. And then I'll go back and do Everything You Know About Nature is Wrong, The Case of the Consumerist Cosmos, assuming I can resell it to my publisher after having taken over a year off. We'll see.
Let's move on to another video.
Yes, let's move on to another video. Let's crunch, munch, and digest another video.
Let's see.
I'm eating some nuts right now.
Here's a clip. I guess this is fairly old, but we've never played it on the show before. It's a clip of Ben Carson.
Oh, great.
Who, saying that the theory of evolution is the work of the devil.
Cool.
Oh, my God.
Of course.
He just came out today with The Big Bang as a fairy tale. By the way, can I just say something before we run the video? This
Yes.
criticism of Donald Trump and this female Fox commentator who was commentating on him, on what age is doing to them with Donald Trump's paunch and hair and her about to sag jowls. This is nature's work. Nature builds us to focus on sexual cues, ripe lips, bright flush in the cheeks, big eyes that focus on us with intensity.
Big
tiny little
eyes.
waist.
Big tits.
Yes, all of that stuff. That's nature's doing. So when we comment about other people's
No,
bodies,
that's patriarchy, is what that is.
Yeah, right. And yeah, like, sure. So
Yeah.
at any rate, it's
That's
built into our-
patriarchal social institutions. That has nothing to do with
Yeah.
biology. You're
So-
crazy.
So that explains why at certain points a male chimpanzee is attracted to a female chimpanzee, and why the mice that make out or the birds that get to the top of the heap end up screwing all the females in the group. Although that's not usually true of birds. But it is
by the
true
way,
of
Howard,
rats and mice.
but before we get to the next video, and let's handle this. We can handle this pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to do anything quickly with you, Howard, because you like to pontificate. But you know, I saw your video about your anti-aging thing,
Right.
and
Right.
you know, I went and took your picture and I put it on my. I just took a random screen grab from the video and I put it on my Twitter and I asked, "How old do you think this guy is?"
And everybody answered 182.
No. Most people did say that you looked like you were in your 50s, and you are in fact 72 years of age, right?
Yes,
is that
that's
correct?
Quite true. Yes,
Wow.
That's absolutely correct. I got a dog bite on my hand a month.
How
and
did
a half.
that happen? What's that?
Well,
What?
a dog. I pet every dog that I see, and I pet the wrong dog for the first time
That's
in
a
my
mistake.
life.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of pettings. So it was a pretty savage wound, and I went back 4 times for rabies shots. So one day I was taken in by the physician's assistant, and she sat me down and she said, "I don't have my screen in front of you with my information on you. Can you tell me how old you are?" And I told her I was 72, and her jaw dropped. So she made a game out of it. She took random passing doctors and physician's assistants and nurses She grabbed them out of the corner. She paraded them into the room. She pointed to me and she said, "How old is he?" And they said, 52, 58. And then, of course, she gleefully revealed my age. So, yeah, there's an author named Joel Agee, and he's astonishing. He writes for the New York Review of Books. His dad was James Agee, who wrote Let Us Now Praise Famous Men or something like that, this towering book of the 20th century. Joel's work, his book, In the House of My Fear, I think it's called, is absolutely terrific. And Joel wants to do a book on this aging process, and he wanted me to do it, and he said, or this anti-aging thing. And I said, I don't have time for that. I got to do my books of ideas. That's really what I owe to my audience, is new perceptual lenses with which to see everything in them and everything around them from a radically different point of view.
But if you can reverse our aging, we have longer to read the books, you know.
That's true. So he said, okay, what about if you talk the book? Talk the book? He said, yeah, what about if you talk it to me? So we're training Dragon Software right now, and we're going to do that because I want you to know this stuff. You know, nobody in my audience believes this, but I did 1,100 push-ups on Monday without stopping in a row. I did 1,000 push-ups yesterday, and I did 1,000 push-ups again today. And about 2 months ago, I reached 1,400 push-ups without stopping for the first time in my life. And when I was 19 years old and reached my absolute peak, I could only do 92. I'm stronger than when I was 16 years old. I have more energy than when I was 16 years old. I have more optimism than I had when I was 16 years old. My youth began now. It didn't begin back then.
I'd be lucky to get 50 push-ups in right now.
Well, then I would have been proud of that too. But when I started, I had this new girlfriend, and I didn't want to sag. I didn't want to be subject to the things we're criticizing in Donald Trump's body and this poor narrator's or whatever she is, commentator's face and body. I didn't want to be subject to that at all. So I thought, okay, if I can do 15 push-ups, it'll be a big deal. And I started with 15 push-ups, and then whenever my body allowed me, I increased it. And I've been doing it steadily for 6 years. I started when I was 66 years old. And the numbers
How old do you expect to live, Howard? What age? Predict your age of death to me.
My dad died at the age of 82. 82 seems to be a very popular number for my generation of people, or the generation just ahead of me. So maybe I've got 10 years to go, which is a very short amount of time.
You don't think your anti-aging process will extend your life at all?
I don't know. You know, I went to the doctor the other day because your health insurance gets hold of you periodically by email and tells you should just go get a preventive checkup. So I went to the doctor the other day, and he did all kinds of sonograms on me. Each one took 45 minutes. And they came to the conclusion that my body's in magnificent shape. So, hey, I don't know. But I will try to reveal this formula because it's a whole lifestyle that I've worked out.
I think it's because a fly went through the transporter with him.
It could be the Illuminati secret potions, TJ.
Yes.
Anyway, let's take a look at this Ben Carson video.
Okay.
Let's talk about good old Ben and his.
I'm dying of anticipation.
Who isn't?
Interestingly enough, this is a relatively modern science concept. Before Darwin came along, it wasn't. You know, scientists...
I'm sorry, what?
Before Darwin came along...
Darwin just showed up and was like...
Before it was...
evolution is a relatively modern concept. Before Darwin came along, it didn't exist. He's wrong, because the concept of evolution began to evolve 60 years before Darwin, over 60 years before Darwin came out with his grand book in 1857. Darwin's grandfather wrote 2 books about evolution. His grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, wrote 2 books about evolution. People were putting together the story. Even Kant, Immanuel Kant, wrote a book in which he imagined the universe starting with a Big Bang. People were putting together the elements of a secular story of the genesis of the cosmos and where life fit into it in the 1700s. What Darwin did is he added what was called a mechanism, and it's a very bad name for what Darwin added, and that's natural selection. And Darwin, and there was an ache for an idea, for an evolutionary idea.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt just for a second. What's the objection to the term mechanism?
Well, the term mechanism comes from the fact that Newton was this, he loved machinery. and he had his own toolkit, and he put together model machinery, and the high-tech machinery in his neighborhood was a windmill, and it was absolutely the latest technology. He went as a kid, he studied the windmill, he built a copy of the windmill that if you blew on it would actually grind up a little piece of grain. He was fascinated with machinery. So
this was during his spare time when he wasn't looking for the Philosopher's Stone.
Yes, so this is before he got into looking at the Philosopher's Stone. So he began to see the universe in a metaphor, and the metaphor was a machine, like the machines that he had built when he was a kid. And so it became not just popular, but obligatory in science to look for the machine metaphor under everything, and that was called the mechanism. So even though Darwin took a so-called mechanism from farmers who sat around deciding how to breed the best sheep, the best cattle, the best pigs, who were obsessed with breeding the best sheep, the best cattle, the best pigs. How? Through very deliberate selection of the female you're going to breed and the male you were going to breed her
You know,
with.
that's a really good idea, but I think Ben Carson really has the answers. So we're gonna listen to a little more of him.
It's like Sir Isaac Newton, considered one of the most scientific minds ever, inventor of calculus, so many things.
Also an alchemist, so yeah.
Strong belief in God. Big mission outreach.
Isaac Newton
Sure, he is right.
Strongly believe in God. He's right about that.
No denying that. Historical record.
Einstein. When you think about genius, what would the word would you come up with? Einstein. He believed in God. Yeah,
not really, Ben. Stop lying.
Yeah, that's kind of bullshit.
Einstein believed in what he called Spinoza's God. And Spinoza's God was the sort of divinity, the magic powers alive in the cosmos. He did not believe in a bearded guy with a bathrobe in the sky.
Yeah, Einstein thought the notion of a personal God was ludicrous. But
Yes,
for some,
okay, so
but just
Ben, you're
because
getting this one a little bit
So was
wrong.
he more of a
But we'll give
deist?
you, I mean, there's a margin of error here. It could be interpreted that way. So we'll give you this one.
I mean, I guess you could say Einstein was maybe kind of a deist, but I think he was more
very
using
much a
God.
deist. He would have agreed with Thomas. Look, there were a bunch of
It's a very yeah, go ahead.
This is something very important. There was a bunch of subversives sitting around the table together in approximately 1770, discussing some very, very subversive ideas, which they were going to totally undermine North America. They were going to push secular humanism on America. And they were actually they would soon attempt to actually put their secular humanism down in documents with which they would control in a monstrous way, an anti-godly way, the United States. Their names were Thomas Jefferson, Madison, Adams, and George Washington. And George Washington kept his views pretty much to himself, but the rest of them were deists who believed that if there's a God, it's implicit in the universe. It's in the forces of nature. To read God's mind, read nature's book. And Ben Carson would have regarded them, and so would that woman commenting on Fox TV, as conspiratorial people trying to take over North America with a godless atheism. And they gave us our Bill of Rights, they gave us our Declaration of Independence, they gave us our Constitution.
Yeah, well, they've just rewritten history to say that they were all committed Christians, so.
I know, they have. You're not kidding. That's not an exaggeration. They have rewritten history to say that. Okay, back to Ben Carson.
A lot of people believed in God, but I personally believe that this theory that Darwin came up with was something that was encouraged by the adversary. And
let's take a break
it
here.
has
Who does he
become
mean by
what-
the adversary? He means
Satan.
That's the name for Satan. Okay,
The
thank
number
you,
of the
Ben.
beast. That's me.
Yes,
That's
so,
TJ. Yes.
Do we want to put a man who carries a personal Satan around in himself in the White House?
Oh, no.
This man has just demonstrated that he is committed to a personal Satan, and that he wants a personal Satan for all of us. Fuck him. Okay, back to Ben Carson.
Is scientifically, politically correct. Amazingly, there are a significant number of scientists who do not believe it.
No.
But they're afraid to say it.
No, yeah, it's extremely insignificant. Extremely
Yes.
insignificant.
Right.
Not to say that scientific consensus equals reality or anything like that.
No, it
but
doesn't. It's a collective fantasy like every other subculture's vision of the world.
But you're basically you're misrepresenting what scientists believe at this point. A significant number of scientists do not deny evolution. That's just silly.
A significant amount of money has gone into founding things like the Discovery Institute to get across, for propaganda purposes, the idea that scientists do not universally believe in a secular cosmos. And yes, they've managed to get a few people published, and they put an enormous amount of money behind those few people. And sometimes the arguments of those few people are arguments of enormous value in advancing science. Nonetheless, it's an insignificant number of scientists. A significant number of scientists believe in God on a personal basis, but it doesn't interfere with their science.
No, they're not denying not denying evolution just to have their God.
They're not denying evolution, and they're not denying the Big Bang. And in fact, there's a legitimate argument about the Big Bang, a legitimate scientific argument. I did a debate online 2 months ago or so for Cosmoetica with 3 people, all of whom are science people, and all of whom believe the Big Bang idea is false. So look, science is about debate. Science is about questioning things. But when you bring up things like the adversary, you are in Never Never Land, and that's not science anymore.
Well, what if he's? Okay. I think maybe he's just talking about an impersonal adversary. I don't
think so.
Yeah, he's talking about the negative connotations of the universe. The destructive forces. I'm
an atheist, right? So there are no gods in the sky. There are no gods in the earth beneath us. There are no spirits drifting around us. So when you bring up the adversary, what are you bringing up? You're bringing up somebody that's in your own fucking mind. That's where the adversary stays alive, is only in your mind and the minds of others who agree with you. And he obviously has a committed Christian audience here who understand exactly what he's talking about when he's talking about the adversary, when he is saying that the idea of evolution is satanic. Now, he's a sweet guy. I think he's an ignorant as shit, but so is Donald Trump. The two of them are on a par when it comes to ignorance. But he's a sweet man, and his sweetness, because people need some sort of honesty, at least his sweetness comes across as a tremendous relief from the backstabbing that goes on in a presidential campaign or any political campaign.
Well, he's kind of like the polar opposite of Donald Trump in that regard, I guess.
Well, but they're on the same pole. They're on this, to have imagine a curtain rod. And you've got these 2 things at the ends, right? They're attached to the same curtain rod.
Yes.
They're just at opposite
ends. And one
ends.
of the things that I'm hoping to do over the next few years, one of the books coming up on my docket is called The Organ of Species. Not the origin of species, the organ of species.
The origin of bullshit.
The organ or the Oregon?
Oregon Trail?
That organ
he has dysentery. He's dead.
I choose
that
oxen.
Organ would be the lower intestine and the anus. But
oh, yeah.
We're going to talk about the organs of the body and how they completely refute evolution and several other things as well.
Total ignorant bullshit.
So that people who are believers will have something they can grasp onto that is done in a way that's not too technical, because when you look at a lot of
if it's complicated, then it's hard to understand.
Stuff,
come on.
They use technical terms to define technical situations, and you don't know any more than you.
Yeah, that's always been my problem with creationists. Too technical.
Well, in the debate, Ben Carson, I guess it was Donald Trump who said something about vaccines causing autism. And they turned to Ben Carson because he's a doctor and should know whether or not vaccines cause autism. And the bottom line was that Ben Carson was trying to say that that's false. But what he said to begin his rebuttal was, "You're a very good doctor." Now, if you disagree with the guy, how can you say you're a good doctor? Aren't you going to mislead your audience about this?
You're a good doctor, even though I think you're wrong on medical issues.
Yes,
it doesn't.
Exactly.
It's a very. It doesn't make sense. It contradicts itself.
No, but
Trump's a master at that, though. I was watching some Donald Trump speeches, and I was almost tempted to tally how many times he amazingly contradicts himself within the same sentence,
or goes off on tangents that have nothing to do with anything.
And then there's other times where it takes 2 sentences for him to contradict himself.
Well, there's this magic word in evolutionary biology, display. Peacocks go through a display. They show off the feathers to show who is the most fit peacock in the group, who's eaten the best food during the year, who's got the most self-confidence. Stags go through it. Lobsters go through it. Birds go through it. All kinds of animals go through it. What we're watching is a parade of display mechanisms. And Donald Trump, his speeches are excuses for a parade of alpha male signals. Those are called dominance signals. And what Ben Carson is trying to show us is a peculiar kind of submission gesture. That I am sweet, I am kind, I am lovely. And he does. His smile is sweet and kind and lovely. It's just a problem when he opens his mouth and says things like he's in the middle of saying right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, it's really strange, you know, these people that go around having to like declare themselves alpha males. Like, I'm an alpha male, you guys are all beta males, all this other stuff. Have you heard about these kind of guys that actually like openly identify as like, I'm the alpha male, bro, alpha male here, you know?
Well, Donald Trump is a perfect example of that. Although I haven't heard him use that word, alpha.
Yeah, I mean, but there's actually people on the internet that go around calling themselves
alpha male here, bro.
Calling other guys
What's up? I'm right.
they disagree with beta males and shit.
Yeah,
it's pretty pathetic.
Well,
micro penis, TJ.
It's a would-be dominance gesture. It's definitely a dominance gesture. They're asking others to challenge them, and they're putting themselves in a position to come out on top.
They're gonna pee on your YouTube channel, TJ. They're gonna piss on it right in front of you.
What if they're not smart? What happens to them then?
Well, if they're not smart, they can be demolished. But if they keep
interesting.
But look, but persistence is an amazing thing. If these guys persist despite being demolished over and over again, they'll come out somewhere. They will accomplish something, no matter how small.
So an inspirational speech for our would-be alphas out there.
Yeah.
Right. All you alphas stick to it. Every time you're knocked down, get back up.
I get knocked down.
But
all right, I'm not going to
stop.
I did stop.
TJ.
I realized.
Not get carried away. Are you on drugs, TJ? Calm down.
Hold on. Let's move on to another video. I think we've pretty much torn Ben Carson's ass apart here.
You would like to do that, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, he's so sexy. Let's.
But the other person who's putting out alpha signals is Carly Fiorina. She is so sharp. She has such great answers at the tip of her tongue.
I was impressed with her rhetorical skill, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be able to come up with a few key facts like Donald, how can you say you're going to run the economy when you've gone bankrupt 4 times? That's pretty good. And for a woman who tanked one of the biggest tech companies in America,
HP.
Hewlett-Packard, to be able to just rattle off the tip of the tongue, I doubled the company in size during my tenure. She's got those factoids, no matter how untrue they may be, at her tongue tip, and it's a remarkable thing to see.
Well, fortunately for them, most Americans are not going to fact check. Anyway, we're going to move on to I don't know, Ben. What do we have here?
Wild Bill.
We have a video from Wild Bill. You're in for a treat here. This is one of our regular guys that we feature on our show, and he is brilliant beyond measure.
A super genius.
He's got a 10-gallon hat.
An IQ of 1 million.
So smart.
Off the charts.
Here we go.
Guns, Bibles, and freedom.
Hello, everybody. Wild Bill for America here. A couple of years ago, Mr. Obama made a rather snotty remark about Americans bitterly clinging to their guns and Bibles. Clearly, Mr. Obama has very little understanding of the American way of life. We don't bitterly cling to our guns and Bibles any more than Rosie O'Donnell
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty apt summation of America.
I think he was talking mostly about middle America, too, you know.
Clinging
to
their
flyover
guns
states.
and their Bibles.
Well, I wanted to hear his reasons for clinging to his guns. You know, there are some Americans, I'm astonished by this. There's a radio show host that I adore. He's down in Arizona someplace. He under one name, I think he goes as Dr. Sky. But he's got, in addition to his show on science, he's got a show on guns. And he's had me on both shows. I can't believe these guys who think that their gun is an indispensable part of their manhood. It's ridiculous. Don't they have a penis, for God's sakes?
It's their second penis.
Yeah.
Penis 2.0. This one's big and black.
And when all of these shootings take place, it doesn't occur to them that if there were fewer guns, there would probably be fewer shootings. In other countries, they don't have as many guns, and they don't have as many shootings.
You don't believe in freedom.
That is the most anti-American communist sentiment.
Yeah, anti-freedom now.
Yeah, I know, because the Second Amendment, they somehow block out the idea of freedom of speech and the other freedoms in the Constitution and believe that this freedom is the only freedom. But if I read that clause correctly, it says, for the sake of a well-ordered militia, Americans shall be allowed to have guns. Well, that doesn't mean that Americans can have unregulated guns. A well-ordered militia is a heavily regulated, disciplined, controlled militia, a well-ordered militia. And these guys are using guns for the sake of their own personal identity statements. That's not exactly what the Constitution was talking about.
And even then, it says right to bear arms. So I mean,
Right.
shouldn't everyone, if that's what it means, shouldn't I be able to have like ballistic missiles in my backyard if I want?
Well, that's a good point. Yes, that's a very good point. I think you should be. And let's make sure that they're. Oh, did you see that the Chinese today? They unveiled their newest version of the Long March rocket, and they put up 20 satellites at a time with it.
Neat.
Yeah. Now I haven't looked into the characteristics of that rocket yet, because those of us in the space community, you know, Buzz Aldrin kidnapped me into founding this thing called the Space Development Steering Committee about 9 years ago. And so I've been an insider in the space community. In fact, TJ, I never got to tell you this. I've been co-designing a multiplanetary mission at Caltech.
Cool.
Sponsored by the Keck Institute for Space Studies. It's amazing. So we're all, we are all huge fans of Elon Musk and SpaceX, and think that his rockets, not just the Falcon, which he's got now, but the Falcon Heavy, which he's going to start flying in 2 years, and then his it's called the BFR rocket. His BFR rocket stands for Big Fucking Rocket.
Awesome.
And beyond that is the Mars Colonial Transport rocket. So we're
not as cool of a name.
Yeah, but we're looking forward to these rockets with enormous relish. And the difference between Elon's rockets and the rocket the Chinese have just flown, which is obviously a big fucking rocket, is that Elon's are going to be reusable the way that airplanes are reusable. You know, you don't take a flight to New York from Louisiana and throw the plane at the Atlantic and then buy another plane to fly back home again. If you did, you couldn't afford the trip. So Elon's rockets are designed to be reused over and over again.
We'll get on the subject of space in a bit. Let's travel to the stranger terrain of Wild Bill's.
Yeah, I want to hear his reasoning here.
Literally clings to a pork chop. We love them because they are vitally important tools that bring and protect freedom and life for our families. The Bible has words of life and hope, eternal life, solutions and guidance for any difficulty in life.
No, it does not have solutions and guidance for every difficulty in life. It was written 2,000 fucking years ago.
It has advice on slavery, though.
Longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it was compiled and you know, from, you know,
translated, edited,
who knows how old the oldest text in the Bible is, but
right.
The point is, it doesn't have
for an era when an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth made sense. We don't take that kind of bodily vengeance anymore. We've evolved significantly beyond that. We don't stone people for adultery anymore. If we did, there would be no soap operas on television.
Hey, if it's supposed to be an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, shouldn't it be an adultery for an adultery?
You know what we should do?
Yes, that's a good one. Yes.
Let's do a little more Wild Bill, and then I have an article that I'd like to go through, like a news article.
Not an artichoke, an article. Okay.
An artichoke, yes.
Oh man, I could
make some spinach artichoke dip.
Ooh yeah.
We're not going to give it up. In fact, we're going to put it right back into American culture where it belongs so that everybody can enjoy it, especially students in the public school.
Yeah, because you can't even find a Bible anymore. You can't even find us. You can't even find a Bible in America anymore.
No, I've been able to find one. Not
it's like
one.
Christianity is a forgotten relic.
Is he talking about putting the gun in the center of American society or the Bible in the center of American society?
I think both.
Both, preferably,
God.
I think. Yeah,
God
for him.
save us. Okay, I'm going to send any money I can, any spare change I can find to the ACLU as quickly as I can.
We love our guns because they're fun. Shooting sports are a great American tradition. Plus, a gun in the home or on the hip brings great comfort when ugliness arises. And frankly, Mr. Obama, you seem to be one to stir up ugliness that threatens American families. We all saw the riots that were quietly instigated by your minions, and we've all heard the direct threat of your race war.
Instigated by Obama's minions?
The riots, like
the race riots, Ferguson.
Things like Ferguson.
Ferguson, okay.
Obama snaps his fingers and then a race riot erupts.
Yeah, because Obama is the
okay.
secret ruler of all black people.
Yes.
And,
so these shootings of black people, and this poor woman in Texas was taken into custody. If you've ever watched, I think her name was something like Sandra Bland. If you've ever watched the full 60-minute video of her arrest, it's one of the most appalling violations of the American Constitution you have ever seen in your life. The way that she's bullied and degraded by this little twerp of a policeman and eventually jailed. It is hideous. If it happened to you or me, it would be monstrous, and it could happen to you and me.
What do you think? What do you think of? What do you think of the sentiment that, if black people don't want to be harassed by the police, they should just stop committing so much
Stop being
crimes?
criminals.
Because we've heard that phrase before.
Yeah, but we've watched things. Thank God for video. Thanks to GoPro and whatever other video cameras there are out there, we can now see what police are doing. And we've seen some pretty wretched things. Okay, so this guy bolts and runs away from his Mercedes, of all things. And a policeman stands there as if he's taking aim and target practice and puts 8 bullets in him and kills him. I mean, since when was running away a capital crime? And you were supposed to be tried for crimes. And this guy had done nothing. He had done nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It was a threat as he ran away.
Yeah, the policeman was harassing him. And the same thing was happening with Sandra Bland or whatever her name is.
What would you say?
The policeman was doing monstrous things to her.
What would you say to people who say that in America, black people should be profiled as potential criminals because statistically, black people commit more crimes?
It's true. Statistically, black people commit more crimes. However, to what extent is that statistic an artifact of the fact that blacks are arrested for just about nothing? I mean,
and should they be profiled as such?
No, he's got. My friend is so. I have a bunch of black friends. They're so middle class. It's ridiculous. They're such upstanding citizens filled with civic virtues that it would blow your mind. But I know whether when they leave me, and they go walking out on the street, they could be profiled at any minute and slapped up against a police car and taken in for nothing, for absolutely nothing. And they can be beaten for absolutely nothing. They could even be shot for absolutely nothing. That's the plight of being black in America today. So it is true that there are more blacks in the black community. I once had a black assistant for a week. She filled in for my normal assistant. And she was here at the time when whether we should put video cameras on all policemen was a big subject in a local election, a mayoral election here in New York City. And I asked her what she thought about it, and she said, absolutely, well, no. I asked her what she thought about profiling, and she said, I'm glad they do it. Why was she glad they do it? Because there's more crime in the black community than there is in the white community. So it's a mix of problems. But if you read Ta-Nehisi Coates, I haven't read his book, I've just seen his articles in The Atlantic, you'll see how blacks were consistently screwed out of money and out of stature for the last 150, well, it actually goes back 450 years. So there's a two-sided argument here. And it's not as simple as all we need is a gun and we can shoot anybody we want because black people are obviously the cause of every problem. And shooting a black person will always take care of our problems. It's not that simple, Wild Bill.
Thugs to hunt down and murder white people. We see the illegal foreigners streaming into our nation with no background checks, and we see you driving a national.
Bill, I see foreigners. I see them on my block. I see little Asian women on my block, and I see Mexican men on my block who have these shopping carts. Somehow they turn them into enormous trash bundles. They've got these huge bags strapped to them, and they are trying to go through everybody's trash when nobody else is around. Late at night, I see them at 2 a.m. They are leaving everybody's trash so immaculate that nobody even knows they were there. What are they doing? They're doing sorting for the sake of whatever it's called, refurbishing, replenishing, reusing, for the sake of reuse.
Recycling?
Recycling, that's the word.
Yeah.
That the rest of us would never, ever have the time to do. Why are they doing it? Because they're working their fucking asses off to gain a foothold here in the United States. And what do they do once they gain a toehold? Well, they go to work as cab drivers, they work that, and they save, they work 18-hour days, they work 7-day weeks, they save and they save and they save until they can buy a medallion, or they end up opening their own shops. And some of the shops opened by so-called illegal Mexicans are some of the most brilliantly colorful that I've ever seen.
Where we live here, we have a lot of Somali refugees, and a lot of them are like taxi drivers and Uber drivers.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, those people can be lovely, and they're Muslims. And another thing to comment about Islam, you know that I was on the hit list in 17 Islamic countries for a whole bunch of years. You know that there were sit-down strikes against me from CAIR, the Council for American Islamic Relations, and from the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee in the lobby of Penthouse, of Omni magazine, actually, for 4 days. You know I fought these people. They have tried to put me out of business. They've tried to make sure I never publish another book again. But the fact is, some of my best friends are Muslims, and roughly, my guess is 50 to 70% of the Muslim community is as middle class, as decent, as pluralist, as tolerant, as modern as you can possibly be. And they're some of the best people on the face of this fucking earth. And they have gotten away from the anti-Semitism that Muhammad, curse his soul, built into the basis of his fucking goddamned religion. So they have an Islam that is a religion of peace. And that's roughly 50 to 70% of the Muslim community. So I prize the experiences when I get into a cab with an Egyptian cab driver, and he lets me sit in the front seat with him, and we talk for an hour and a quarter. And he tells me what's going on in Egypt. Or when I'm with a Yemeni cab driver, and he tells me what's going on in Yemen. Those people end up prizing me, and I end up prizing them. My producers on Iranian, I appear on Iranian and Saudi TV all the time. And I'm a fucking goddamn Zionist atheist Jew, for God's sakes. They let me debate one-on-one with a senior official from Hamas. They let me debate one-on-one with a senior official from the Muslim Brotherhood. And they're people I love, and I think they love me at this point. There are ways to make peace in this world. The sheikh who made Dubai what it is today, who built the world's tallest building, and who is Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates, named a racehorse after one of my books, after a book by a Zionist atheist Jew. If that doesn't show a path to peace, I don't know what does. The 11th president of India.
What was the name of the racehorse?
The racehorse is the Beast, for the genius of the beast, the radical revision of capitalism. And the 11th president of India, Dr. APJ Kalam, who's a rocket scientist and behind a rocket program that's gotten over 70 satellites into space, including one that's circling Mars at this very moment, said my work is a visionary creation, and he's a Muslim. When I was called on to create a 2-day intensive seminar on reperceiving leadership for 10 CEOs and general managers, I was called to do it in Kuala Lumpur. All 10 of the people I did this thing with, all CEOs and general managers, all wonderful, fantastic, creative people, every single one of them was a Muslim. There is a way to peace. I can see it in my own fucking goddamn life. But there is also the dark edge of Islam. And there is the fact that Saudi Arabia has been planting madrasas, religious schools, and mosques all over the world, including all over the United States, including Mexico, including Japan. And those madrasas preach Wahhabi Islam. And Wahhabi Islam is what led directly to Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. The Saudis are doing this even though the knife of Al-Qaeda is at their throat. That the people in Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, and ISIS want nothing better than to behead the royal family of Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabians have been playing a very peculiar game. But the Iranians, look, they got us to take Iraq and hand it to them on a platter. Lord knows what we're going to hand them next.
We have an article that we want to look over here.
Okay.
Let's take a look at, this is something that Ben thought would be interesting, so let's take a quick look here.
About how they had to change the deceptive language that voters are going to see for the marijuana initiative that's taking place here.
And why is it misleading?
They called it a monopoly. I don't know how much you know about it, but basically there was a super PAC here that got enough signatures to be on the ballot to legalize recreational and medical marijuana in Ohio.
Right.
They got about 750,000 signatures, and the loudest opposition to it are people who are against the fact that initially the amendment will be written into our Constitution as 10 companies will pretty much have the growers, the commercial growing market locked down.
Yeah, you can basically grow it on 10 parcels of land.
That doesn't sound very capitalist to me.
Now, one thing about it is that for personal use, home growing will be legal, and gifting will be legal, and they will also.
But
they're
not
going
sales?
Sales from personal. So like you couldn't just like grow it in your house and sell it in stores. Now you can open a store and sell it, but where you're getting it from, that's one of that group of investors.
Yeah, you're basically. Yeah, they're basically.
You don't want to write government-controlled monopolies into a law.
I wouldn't say it's a monopoly, though.
Well, 10 companies. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, as I understand the marijuana business, there's an incredible amount of entrepreneurial energy going into raising absolutely the most effective marijuana around. And people are being very inventive in the way that they're going about it. And the marijuana today, I'm told, has 10 times as much power as the marijuana of 1965.
That is definitely true.
Yes.
So you want that entrepreneurial
God
energy.
bless now.
Yeah, I think, just in my opinion, I'm going to vote for it because I'm done with criminalization, especially for things like here in Ohio. If you get any drug-related crime against you, they can take away your driver's license for up to 6 months.
Oof. Okay, that makes it hard for you to make a living in Ohio.
Yeah, and it's happened to several people that I know. That's the most benign thing that can happen to you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that the fact that there's only 10 companies allowed to grow it is jacked up. But our thing is like, let's vote for this now and try to improve upon it later, because
I would agree with you. I mean, this
criminalize, being criminalized now. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are purists who are trying to defeat this measure on that basis. But the problem with that is that there's going to be people going to jail. There's going to be people losing their licenses. There's going to be
losing their jobs, being denied jobs.
Honestly, the crazier thing about it is not even this piece of legislation that is Responsible Ohio, which would legalize marijuana, but only for these 10 companies to grow it. The crazier thing is this issue 2 on the ballot, right? Which basically, if that was passed, would make it impossible for marijuana to ever be legalized by a popular vote.
Well, that's hard.
And it's
because the fact is that this is a battle between subcultures over their favorite recreational drugs. And the alcohol subculture was under the same kinds of pressures in 1850 that marijuana is under right now. There were a whole bunch of women who really did not want their husbands coming home drunk. They blamed it all on beer. Beer was new to the United States. It had come over with German immigration in 1842. And they were trying to make sure that beer places could not exist. Well, now alcohol is the recreational drug of choice for those who claim to represent the majority. The fact is, and marijuana is the drug of choice for a different subculture.
I'll tell you,
that doesn't feel that it's part of the mainstream.
I must belong to both of those cultures.
The craziest thing about it here, though, is that the loudest opposition, I guess it's not so crazy, actually, because, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but it's just, I never thought it would happen. The most vocal opposition to it here are people who do smoke or are pro-legalization that are just against, the actual financial capitalist side of it.
Right.
Yeah, they basically just want us to pass legislation that says anyone can grow any amount of marijuana and sell any amount of marijuana, and it's just totally pure.
Well, I'd be for that too, because the fact is that when you compare
that's not going to pass. That's not going to pass,
by marijuana, the damage done by alcohol is far, far greater.
Yeah, but we're talking about Ohio, the purple state. You know. So, I mean, it's where North and South kind of meet. Like, to the south of us is Kentucky, and to the north of us, well, and also West Virginia, and then to the north of us is Michigan. So it's such a mixture here that if you want to pass a law like this in a state like this that's so mixed, even, with a Republican governor and everything.
Well, I'm with TJ that a law like this is an advance, and that you have to take your advances where you can get them, and then move forward to perfect things. Marijuana, so far as I'm concerned, it's like any other drug. Any good thing in excess is a poison. That's true of alcohol.
We actually sell on the very screen that you're sharing. We have a sign that says "Smoke Pan" every day.
Yeah,
pan is our euphemism for pot.
I like the T-shirt that they have though. Do you see it? The Ohio.
I don't.
It says get
Ohio.
It says Ohio.
Oh, Ohio.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I would say I do smoke weed every single day. So I don't know if it's a poison yet. How do I know when it's a poison?
I know people who've smoked themselves into oblivion.
Yeah.
I know people who just lost any sense of will, of persistence, and have made themselves non-contributing parts of society. But what's worse, they made themselves basket cases.
But let's remember, I smoke weed every day, and this is episode 154 of this.
156.
156. See, that's proof that I smoke weed every day.
I had clients who smoked it every day, and unfortunately, and who did very well. Ian Copeland, who was the head of FBI.
Do you think it boils down to the person, or?
I don't know. There's all kinds of fascinating research about what cannabinoids do in the brain. They have to do with appetite, and you know that, getting the munchies, and a bunch of other things. They serve very useful purposes in the brain, but I haven't been able to remember the research. So
the other reason to vote for this here is because at this point there's no medical cannabis at all. So I think
cannabis has got, in any culture that is going to say okay to alcohol and tobacco, the fact is that cannabis is less harmful than either of them. So cannabis, because it's again a drug of choice of a subculture, you only ban cannabis, you only ban pot in order to put that subculture down and squash it under your thumb, and that's something that no political group should have a right to do to another political group.
I agree. Hey, Howard, maybe you could actually help me with something, because I actually, maybe your advice would be valuable on something, because you were talking about tobacco a moment ago. I have found, I smoke cigarettes. I find it extremely hard. I find it extremely hard not to. I've tried to quit several times. I find that I'm not able to muster the willpower to not smoke. I'm not very good at denying things to myself. I can't give myself boundaries very well. I have difficulties with that. Do you have any advice? Like, I know you know a lot about brain chemistry and shit like that, so maybe you have some advice that you could give me that would maybe help me actually get off smoking.
Well, okay.
Because I don't really want to do it, but I do want to do it also. So.
Well, make a deal with Ben or somebody that you trust. Give him $1,000. And tell him that for every week that you smoke, that you break down, he will give that $1,000 to Donald Trump for the Donald Trump campaign.
Shit!
And that
I'd rather just keep it.
Yeah, Ben would just keep it. Yeah, he'd be like, I gave it to Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's what's meant to motivate you. It's the big motivator.
Do we have to do that to TJ now?
I would suggest that, because that gives you enough money to carry you over for 10 weeks of self-discipline. And you can always remind yourself that if you fuck up, that money is going to, what did Ben Carson call it? The adversary?
It's going to the adversary.
Money is going to the adversary.
It's not a bad plan. Maybe I'll consider that.
It helps.
You'll consider it.
It helps to feel that you are in the spotlight of another human being, that other human being is watching what you were doing. And, of course, this would give Ben an interest in making sure that you stayed off of tobacco. And it would help you. I mean, it helps me to know that I have a girlfriend, and it's very hard to do 1,000 or 1,400 push-ups. You have to keep pushing yourself and pushing yourself. Believe me, you want to quit at push-up number 30. And you still want to quit at push-up number 130 and 230 and 330. But having the eyes of someone upon you in your own mind helps with the self-discipline tremendously.
She just tried to hide the behavior, because we've actually tried things like that where she just like, watch me, don't let me, monitor me, and he always just finds a way.
You know what? That is what motivates TJ. Because, like, TJ never runs. But when it came to like running to get cigarettes when no one was looking,
yeah,
TJ's like
he's Usain
an
Bolt,
Olympic
man.
track runner.
Yeah,
turn into Usain Bolt.
Astonishing.
But you know what? I have gone from about 12 to 14 cigarettes a day to 4 cigarettes a day. So
well, that's good.
I am at least
okay.
I am at least weaning myself.
I do want to say though that TJ will be like, I didn't smoke any cigarettes today. We'll be like, okay, well, did you smoke a cigar? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Oh God. Oh Lord. I mean, you know, what we're talking about here is your longevity. People like me, I want you to be around for a long, long time to come. And cigarettes, my dad died of lung cancer. It was nasty.
Hey, he was 82 though. Holy shit, I could live to 82 smoking.
But my brother tells me, because I was stuck in bed and nobody was allowed to talk to me about it because I couldn't handle any kind of stress. But my brother tells me it was mean, wicked, nasty. It was painful. It was horrible. And
yeah,
we don't
I'll
want you
just
to go through that.
I'll just kill myself when that happens, I guess. I'll commit seppuku in the Japanese
You are killing
fashion.
yourself already.
Yeah, you're already doing that.
But I'll do it quicker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Howard, you said earlier in the show you tried to kill yourself a few times in your life. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that was because of your illness, maybe? Or was it for other reason?
One was because I had no purposes left in life. I hadn't planned things well enough. And the other was because, because my illness, because my wife was divorcing me. She was leaving me because of the illness. Life was pretty hard. I mean, the first time I had tried to find myself an arbitrary purpose in life, because when you have a purpose and you set yourself on a goal, no matter what it is, and you work to achieve it, you end up accomplishing things you never thought you would accomplish in your life.
How did you try to do it?
Well,
what was the method?
Time, I don't know how I had this with me, but the day after we finished, I had 4 years at NYU. Okay, that gave me an artificial purpose, get a degree, and get straight A's. That was an artificial purpose too. So I aced it for 3 years straight. I got nothing but straight A's. But I didn't anticipate that I would have to set up some structure for when school was over, when I graduated. And after the last day of classes, one of my friends who had been married to the guy that Allen Ginsberg wrote the poem or dedicated the poem Howl, you know, the key poem, the key anthem of the Beat Generation to. She was married to him. So she was she was before a hippie. She was an old beatnik. So she took me to a Country Joe and the Fish concert, and she had speed. I think it was methadone. And I hadn't done any, I'd only done speed once in my life. So I took the pills, which I shouldn't probably have done. And you know how speed is. You're all jacked up for about 4 to 6 hours, and you can think you would solve all the problems of the universe, and entire encyclopedias full of information come surging through your brain, and you put them through you put them in packages, you organize them in miraculous new ways that are going to save humanity. And then after the 6 hours is over, comes the next 36 hours of crash, and you're in a miserable state. Well, during the crash, I had no purpose in life anymore. School had done it for 4 years, and now I was out of school, and I was sitting there morosely looking at a bottle of about 140 Valium, thinking of taking them, and the woman who had taken me to this concert saw me doing that, grabbed the bottle of Valium and said, "You're coming home with me." And I spent the next 2 weeks in a mental institution. They let me out for good behavior, and I learned all kinds of interesting things in that mental institution. It was a terrific opportunity. But then when my wife tried to divorce me, and this is many years later, because the first one would have been in 1968, the second one would have been 30 years later in 1998. And my wife was divorcing me, and I didn't have anything left. You know, my illness had taken away my ability to do PR. Not that I wanted to do that anymore. I'd started writing my first book, and I wanted to do my book, but I wanted to go out and promote my book. I wanted to go to every town I'd been to with ZZ Top or the Jacksons, and promote my own fucking book, my own thinking, my own way of giving you perceptual lenses, the thing I'm really here on this planet to do. And now my ability to talk had gone. I couldn't speak anymore. My ability to have another person in the room with me had gone. My ability to walk was gone. All of my abilities were gone. Everything was gone. And the one thing I had left was my marriage. My wife had been leaving me for 3 days at a time to go upstate to take care of her mother, help take care of her mother with her sister. Her mother had Alzheimer's. And I begged her, because those 3 days alone were hideous. And I begged her to stop doing that. And she said, "I'm going to do it even more." And then she hit me with a divorce. And the divorce story was cool, TJ, because she hit me. Here I was, incapable of speaking, incapable of handling any kind of stress, incapable of having people in the room. And she hit me with the divorce papers. She came here. She usually, when she made odd visits to me, she announced it to the two people who were at least making my food and taking care of laundering my clothes, who have turned out to be heroin addicts. I didn't know that. But, I mean, it was a real weird scene. But she would call in advance. Well, she showed up one day without calling in advance, and she just sat in the front room, and nobody knew why. And then in came this little person who looked like she was straight out of a Damon Runyon novel. She looked like a walking callus. And the two of them, my wife and this strange-looking woman, walked into my bedroom where I was laying on the bed, and I stood up, which was very hard for me then, and walked over 2 steps and put my hand out, because even if this woman looked peculiar, if she was a friend of my wife, she was a friend of mine, and she put a piece of paper in my hands, and then the two of them disappeared. I think my wife sat on my bed for a few minutes and said, "We're still friends," and gave me a Tycho, or whatever they're called, big stuffed bear, and a big stuffed moose, and we're not friends under those conditions. And then I lay there for 2 hours without even reading the piece of paper, because my system could not handle stress. But I realized nobody else was going to read it, and I was going to have to read it anyway. And it was a paper that said if I didn't answer her in court in the next 22 days, I would forfeit everything I owned. I would forfeit the bed I was sleeping on, the sheets that were covering me, the building I was living in, everything, absolutely everything would go. And now, if you hand paper like that to somebody on November 22nd, and that person's already very, very seriously disabled, what is that person up against in terms of getting a lawyer? Remember, everybody in the practical world, like lawyers, disappears around the 24th to have Thanksgiving, and they really don't come back until something like January 6th, because first it's Thanksgiving, then it's Christmas, then they take their vacations in Bermuda, then they come back. She was setting me up. She was setting me up to lose everything I had. And it was a terrible experience. And I managed to get a lawyer, thank God. And the lawyer was good under the circumstances. He never came out to visit me. I still never met him in my life. I had to do everything I could from my bed. It was difficult. It was really horrid. And one thing I didn't realize at the time is your emotions are always there, whether you acknowledge them or not. And I didn't acknowledge the fact that I was angry against my wife. I wouldn't admit it to myself. And because I wouldn't admit it to myself, it sat inside of me and it turned on me. And it meant that every second of the day, I was going through the kind of pain that makes a second seem like an eternity. Second after second after second of eternal hell and eternal pain. And I couldn't take it anymore, finally, after 2 months or 3 months. And finally, I decided I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I can't go through any more of these interminable hells that never end in a second. So I took 98 Valium, I took 15 Thorazine, I found 5 cc's of lidocaine, and I had a great big needle, and I put the 5 cc's of lidocaine on the great big needle, and I put that into me, and I went to sleep, and I didn't want to cause anybody in trouble. I just didn't want to wake up the next morning. And I woke up 3 days later, and I learned that there is a meaning to the phrase sleeping like a corpse. Your body, you know those things of your circulatory system that you used to see in encyclopedias in the days when encyclopedias were printed, and you'd have this plastic red overlay and a blue overlay, and that's your circulatory system. No, I'm sorry, that's not your circulatory system. That's a small part of your circulatory system. When you tap your foot at a concert, that's your circulatory system. When you move restlessly at night and turn from one side to the other, that's your circulatory system. When you walk, that's your circulatory system. If all of your muscles stop moving, with the exception of your heart, you don't have circulatory system. And the result was that when I woke up 3 days later, I'd been sleeping like a corpse, meaning that none of my muscles had been moving at all for 3 days, and the blood had pooled. And the weight of the blood, your flesh is much more fragile than you imagine. And your blood, 2 quarts of it, is a lot more weight than your body can handle without constantly shuttling the stuff around. So there was a hole in my neck where the blood had come out, and there was a hole in my side where the blood had come out, both on the right side, exactly where they would have been in Jesus. I could have. These are
Wow.
called stigmata.
So you're the second coming, basically.
Yeah, right. I'm the Jewish Zionist atheist saint.
Hey, you know, the Jews are still waiting for the Messiah. Maybe they found their
I'll have
guy.
to
You know what I'm
apply,
saying?
Right. So,
Hey,
at
Howard,
any rate,
I
so
hate.
that's
Well, hold
what it's
on.
like.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt, but we are going to wrap the show up. Thank you
Okay.
very much for being
I'll
on.
be curious to see how you wrap up. That's it. Thank you very much for being on. You're not going to wrap up all the contents of this stuff.
Nope, we just end. It just goes and goes until eventually we're like, all right, that's long enough. We're done.
Okay, well, it's nice to drop off the cliff with you. No, I had a wonderful time. I always do. I think it's
Thanks, Howard.
You guys are terrific.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you, Scotty, most of all.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks for Howard for being on. Thanks.
Check out his YouTube channel.
For watching. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got
In
a
the
bunch
description
of
below.
legit books that are actually in stores and shit, like the Lucifer Principle, which is
Or
my
on
favorite.
Amazon.
Yeah, you can buy them on Amazon using our
Great
affiliate link.
books.
Even
I
if
think
you were
TJ's read
interested
a lot
by
of
what
them.
Howard had to say, why don't you use the Amazon affiliate link down below to go buy one of his fucking books?
And some knowledge in your brain.
If you enjoyed the show, give the video a thumbs up.
Just do it.
Do it for Ben.
Do it.
Look at if you could see Ben right now, you know he
Let's
really
take
needs
a
to
look
do
at
it.
let's take a
He
look
really
at the
needs to do
fantasy
it.
football league and see where we are. We got 54, so there's less than 1/3 left.
If you
available.
guys want to get beat by me,
We've
the
got
privilege
3 days
of being beaten by one of the drunken
Show
peasants.
Scotty what's up. Show Scotty what's up.
TJ and Ben are out of this. They're not going to win.
No, my next.
They're garbage.
I'm going to play
They're garbage.
first with my next team.
Okay, we'll see.
Oh.
We'll see. You want to put some money on the line right now on the air then?
So extra money?
Oh, I ain't putting money against you. I'm just going to win at fan.
No, TJ.
Nope.
You said you're going to win.
Nope.
If you're going to win, you're going to beat me. $100, TJ. Do you want to go right now?
Nope, I ain't doing it.
Pussy.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're a pussy.
FanDuel.com/DP.
He's afraid. The banana bitch is afraid.
The fucking egg bitch.
The egg bitch is going to beat the banana bitch, huh?
No.
Oh, it happened last week. $100, TJ. You want to take the bet or
That
not?
was the end of
$100. You want to take the bet or not? Yes or no? True or false, TJ?
No, I ain't taking it.
Oh, come
You're
on.
gonna goad me into it, you piece of shit.
The audience is seeing you back down, TJ. I am the alpha male. I am the Donald Trump of our group.
Wow.
I am Donald Trump. Come on.
Neat. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night. See you guys on Friday.
Good night and good fuck.